Please take a seat. My name is Steve Garrett with the Board of Finance. I welcome you to the 26-27 fiscal year budget hearing. Tonight you're going to hear from the people who've done the budget. In other words, you're going to hear first from the Board of Selectmen. You'll hear from the library and you'll hear from the Board of Education. After each one of them give their presentation, we ask that you hold all the questions till the end of the presentation. So after the Board of Selectmen comes up, you're welcome to ask questions, give comments. Please limit it to 3 minutes if possible. And when you do have a question or a comment, please step up to the microphone and give your name and address. And then the first selectman will do his best, or one of the department heads will do their best to answer the question. The same will happen with the Board of the Library and with the Board of Education. After all three have given their presentation and you've had an opportunity to make comments and ask questions, we will close the hearing to questions and then we will open it up to public comment. The public comment, again, same thing, step to the microphone. Please limit it to 3 minutes, your name and your address. And the public comment will be for the benefit of the Board of Finance. So we would like to hear as the Board of Finance, what your thoughts are on the budget, if you have any concerns and so forth. There will be no questions answered at that time. So we just want comments to hear what people think about the budget, what they think we should be doing. And after that, we will close the hearing and we will start a Board of Finance meeting. At that time, you're welcome to stay. We will then deliberate on the budget. We'll talk amongst ourselves, possibly ask more questions of the presenters tonight. And then after that, like I said, during our meeting, we could possibly take action on the budget. We could approve it as it stands. We could raise it. We could lower it. We could not make any decisions tonight. We're not sure yet until we actually talk about it after we've heard from you. So without holding anything up here, let's start with our first presenter, which is First Selectman Bill Morrison.
Good evening, everyone. There's a handout that's going around the room. This side of the room hasn't gotten it yet. Just be patient. I think it's headed that way. I would like to introduce myself. My name is Bill Morrison. I am the first selectman of the town of Stafford. I've got 2 microphones. Thanks. I've been working with 2 selectmen, Tony Arlen and Tim Cromwell here, who's in attendance today. We respectfully present this budget to you this evening for consideration, understanding the importance of keeping spending down as much as possible and noting the reevaluation process this year. We understand it, we got it. Like in many towns, and in some cases, local budgets, you will hear presented this evening, there are budget drivers that make it difficult during any budget process. However, this year, a large budget driver for the selectmen's budget happened to be healthcare costs. During the presentation, you'll see many departments have an increase in their salary and benefit line items. This is due in part to the increased cost of health insurance, which we calculated and was notified of 12.5% increase. Understanding that one of our most valuable resources in town is our employees, it is important to realize that we should continue to invest in the workforce as they provide value, experience, and dedication. Special thanks go out this evening for preparing this budget. Both to Tony and Tim, as I announced before, our new finance officer, who is an interim, Lynn, who has been working with us, Lynn Nettie, who has filled the vacancy just created months ago. And of course, my executive assistant for putting the time in, and all the department heads that work, and most of them are here this evening. So thank you for that. This is the fiscal year 26-27 budget. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these slides, but I just wanted to note that the infrastructure profile really does have an effect on our budget. We are the 3rd largest town in Connecticut with about 58 square miles. What does that mean? It means that we have about 116 miles of road, 94 and a half of it's paved, and 21 and a half is unimproved. There's a lot of work to be done in a large area. In this town, it takes an awful lot of effort to get long roads done and to get from one place to another. Another consideration is in the borough. There's very, very small roads in there. Special equipment is needed to work there. So I just wanted to make that note. You're all from town. I understand that you probably already know that, but it was important for me to bring that out. We do, and even in the emergency services, have a unique situation because the town is so large. We have a fire department in the Stafford section, one in the West Stafford section, and of course, we have the ambulance in the center of town. I do note that during the infrastructure profile, and I'm not speaking for the Board of Education, but transportation costs with regard to busing has got to have an effect on their budget. And I use that as just an example of how big and how rural our roads and our areas are. Next slide, please. I want to talk just a minute about revenues and expenses. I understand most of you understand the process. We have revenue that comes in, we have expenses that go out. We get revenues from different sources. We get state funding, much of is used for our roads and our bridges. We get pilot payment in lieu of taxes, and client-based services, family services, building permits, that type of thing. The state funding is not a guarantee. In fact, we have not gotten the numbers yet from the state. We won't get them until after this meeting. However, they've tended to be consistent, so we use the numbers that we have available to us. ECS funding, and I think the school board will talk about that, is on $9.5 million. That's a big sum of money that comes to the town as part of our revenue. Pilot, an example of pilot would be Woodland Springs, and any state-owned property to include the hospital. Our anticipated revenues for 26-27 is 14.5 million. Once again, subject to change. The next slide. This is a slide, and you'll see some of what's been handed out to you will be consistent with this. It does give kind of a lot of stuff going on in this slide, but it will give you an indication of what the mill rate calc in the what a mill actually is. I won't spend a lot of time in this, as you'll be seeing this coming around. Next slide, please. Under the general government budget, that's the budget that I put together along with the other two selectmen. The selectmen's budget request for this year is 13,202,762. It's an increase of 507,660. And by the way, I'm going to break these down by department. Some of them I will skip through very quickly. This is just a quick overview. So it's about a 4%. It is a 4% change. Under debt service, I want to make sure it was spelled correctly. There's a $3 million request. It's actually a decrease of 404,675, or 11.74% decrease, and that's due to bonds that were paid off. The library budget is a request of 614,410, an increase of 27,230, for an increase of 4.64%. So the overall increase is 130,214, or a 0.78% increase. This includes debt service to repay a bonded debt for WPCA. It covers the costs associated with SES construction and the high school renovation. It includes the work that the park and recs do and public works for the Board of Education. Next slide, please. There are 4 slides that you're going to see. I'm just going to highlight a couple of the items on these slides. And then, as I said before, I'll go through the individual department budgets. Under 120, the registers, you'll see that there's a requested 126,189 for a variance of 26.19% increase. I'll explain more about that, but what we did is we did a stipend for the registers and the deputy registers. I'll explain why that's important down a little bit later. Moving on to the next slide, under buildings, there's a 23.17% increase, or a request of 818,655. Under animal control, there's a $40,000 decrease, or 21.11%. Once again, when we get into that slide, I will note it. I wanted to bring these out so that you understand the board realizes these variances. In some cases, they're substantial increases. Under holidays, I'm sorry, next slide. Under holidays, there's a 17.73% 6% increase. And once again, that is due to a contribution. That is due to the 250th anniversary, of which we will get a reimbursement from the generosity of the Savings Bank of Stafford. The next slide, please. Under transfer out fund, I'll explain more about that. The request is for $285,258 for a 56.95% increase. The only other one I wanted to mention was the capital project leases, which went down 47.34%. Next slide, please. Thank you. Under the Board of Selectmen, there's an increase in salary and benefits. The town has been quoted 12.5% increase of health insurance costs. You'll see a large increase in all the budgets and all of the line items that have to do with health. The last time I'm going to mention it, I just wanted to bring that out one more time as it's underneath the Board of Selectmen's budget. The request is for $231,041. The increase is $5,611. Under grants and opportunities, this is a budget that most people are very, very familiar with. This is the Amber's the department head on this. $1,000 of this was allotted for the Economic Development Commission. One of the things that was explained to me very, very vividly, and all the CFOs that I come to, is that we need to get our revenues up, and the way to do that, I think, is to bolster this committee. Amber is the town's grant writer. She's consistently working on grant applications to find funding sources to limit costs to taxpayers for town projects, infrastructure projects. She works closely with all the departments. Many of the departments will come in, ask her to write a grant, look at a grant, research a grant. She does that, and of course, she does that well. She's also, in addition, responsible for economic development activities and contributes to summer rec program. Listen, shows a lot. That department's busy and is worth, I'm going to say out loud, millions to the department, as most to the town. As most of you know, we just landed a $1.8 million grant due to her efforts. Under probate court, next slide, please. There's an increase of $500. This is what the town is billed annually by North Central Probate Court. This is for Stafford residents when they need probate for whatever reason, and that's done, and that's a cost to our town. IT technology, there's a request of $248,901. The increase is $23,569. It is to update the website .gov. We are mandated to go from .org to .gov. We are researching a grant to try to absorb these costs. And in some cases, there may not be a cost. However, at this point, we do have it in the budget. It's a minimal cost, but I wanted to bring that out. We also have been asked, or IT has asked, that we update our telephones at the resident trooper's office, town hall, and community center. That cost is about $18,000. Our phones are 10 years old and they're not able to be worked on any longer. So IT has asked that we move that forward. Under the registers, that's 120. The request is $126,189. The increase is for $26,189. The increased cost is for election day helpers, increased in stipends for registers and deputy registers. This will be an all-inclusive of the work that they perform for fiscal year, a truer picture of the expense. When we had a stipend for both the registers and the deputy registers, that didn't count the time that they put in hourly for the work that they needed to do, most specifically early voting cost and referendums, of course. So this now will be a stipend, and will now not have an hourly charge from the registers to the department. That is in no way meant to be disrespectful to them. They worked time, they got paid for the hours. Now it's a stipend, and what they have to put in for time now is going to be part of that stipend. I did work with the 4 registers to come up with this calculation. We do, by the way, receive about $8,000 from the state of Connecticut in reimbursement for early voting. I talked to you before about revenues and expenses. That's one of the revenues we get. Under human resources, the request is for $114,808, an increase of $6,336. That, of course, is for health insurance and about $4,000 of that is health insurance. There's also recruiting cost and a salary baked in that. 130 is the Board of Finance. There's an increase of 3,761. That request is 89,361. The increase in our audit cost and for the recording secretary of the Board of Finance. Moving on, under the assessors, there's an increase in software service costs that maintain our property information. The increase is 9,792, in addition to, as I stated before, the actual cost for the employment there. Under 150, Board of Assessment Appeals. There's no change in this. This is a small stipend that 3 elected officials on the Board of Assessment Appeal whose purpose is to hear appeals from the property owners who disagree with their assessments. The cost is $2,328.33 per person. So overall, the requested amount is $6,985 with no change. Under the tax collector, the requested amount is $237,019, an increase of $17,561. This is for the tax collector, assistant tax collector, and a part-time summer helper during tax time. Our collection rate at this point is 97.7, and which was noted in the audit as being a good rate. Under Finance Department, the request is for 401,259. It's a decrease of 952. There's currently a vacancy that is being filled by a consultant, reducing the cost that we had anticipated for the full-time CFO who left. Under 180 happens to be the town council. Request is 38,000. There's no increase in this line item. We don't anticipate any. 190 under town clerk, there's a request of 332,100. An increase of 27,135. The increase cost associated with state mandated records management system. We have to either update or change our management system. The cost of that's going to be 17,888. And of course, we have 1 town clerk and 2 assistants. Under buildings, the request is for 818,655. The increase is 153,991. The increased cost for maintenance for the town facilities and capital building projects. In this figure is $75,000 for the painting of the exterior of the DPW garage, $60,000 for a new roof and a new heating system at the family services for a total of $135,000. Next slide, it is fuel and oil and propane. We did increase it $1,000. We were able to lock in at $2.55. I'm saying we locked in. I'll keep you posted. I'll keep you posted. It's all timing. I'll keep you posted. 210 fixed charges is $1,231,719. It's an increase of $30,973. This increased insurance costs for workers' compensation and general liability for the town. Under 220 capital outlay, request for $40,000. There is no increase in this, and this is for the maintenance and increase to fix, or the money goes to fixing trash gate at Glenville Dam. However, all dams and bridges. That's an account that we zero out annually. There's more work than there is money, but the Public Works Director prioritizes that work and seems to be doing a good job on it. I did speak before about the animal control line item. The request is for $150,764. It's a decrease of $40,341. This was previously in safety and protection. If you remember last year, it looked a little confusing. So this account has been changed to animal control, and the previous line items have been moved to more appropriate departments. The new line item for animal control expenses, the dog fund that usually covers the expenses, is not sufficient enough to cover the cost. So we're adding $30,000 to that line item. Initially or throughout the years, there were donations that would help to offset the cost. However, the dog fund is depleted. I will tell you that the animal control officer, I mean, I'm just gonna throw like 5 times busier than I've ever thought they would be. We take care of dogs, cats, animals of all type, and the cost and the need for animal control has risen. I will say that we are a part of, with Willington and Holland and Stafford, we received an RPIP grant that could in fact help offset some of these costs if we elect to join as part of the grant. The town of Stafford would take the responsibility of the employees, and they would split the cost in 3 ways, but as part of the grant in the first year would pay 75% of the cost of the animal control, 50% in the second year, 25% in the third year. And then in the fourth year, the towns they can opt to continue the agreement, however, without the grant. There could be a cost saving measure there. We're still working it out. There's details that yet have to be agreed to as part of the grant. I work closely with HR to try to develop a cost for this particular line item. You'll hear me talk often about shared services. We're trying to do as much shared services as we can, thus help bring down the cost of what it is on our everyday expenses. Under police protection, the requested for $920,822. The increase is $65,229. Police equipment increase for outdated MDTs, computer mobile data terminals. There's a contract payment that on tasers that we had to buy, and we pay for them over a 5-year period. There's no new vehicles that have been added to this amount. However, the emergency management and homeland security lines were moved to the budget from 240 to safety and protection. That's one of those items that I said we moved into a more appropriate place. Under emergency services, you'll see a $365,000 cost there for the ambulance. This, as I mentioned, I think in the first year that I started the budget, this is what actually cost the taxpayer to run the ambulance. They have revenues, they have expenses, and the difference is $365,000. There's also 2 volunteer fire departments. One, as I mentioned, West Stafford. The other one I mentioned is Stafford Fire Department number 1. They each also get funding, and for a total of $471,277. That goes for their cost of equipment, building maintenance, fuel. None of the volunteers get paid hourly for anything that they do there. Next slide, 270 permits and inspections under the department. The request is for $592,565, an increase of $64,080. We have shared services also in the building department. The fire marshal is also a building inspector, and we have a full-time building inspector. We have an agreement with the town of Wyndham where we charge them $138,507 a year to send those 2 gentlemen on alternating days for a total of 8 hours a week. We lose no time with those 2 gentlemen as they work on Fridays and Saturdays because they're salary to make up that time if they have to. I'm there, they're there. I see them working. Also, we have a zoning enforcement services to the town of Union for a cost of a net of $6,000 per year. All of the stipends that are paid offset the cost of the increase. Under the transfer station operations, the request is for $634,306, an increase of $18,104. The increase in equipment repair for all transfer station equipment, increase in disposal costs for trash and recyclables, funding for regulatory upgrades and repair of the facility and scale. We're also in negotiations, or at least discussions, with Holland as they would like to bring their bulk waste over to the town of Stafford and for a fee. We're not anywhere near yet coming to an agreement. There's going to be a public meeting on that. I'll let the Public Works Director put that announcement out when the date has, if it hasn't already been put out. And we're only in a discussion phase. but it's another way of bringing income into the town by a shared service that my understanding is will not affect the transfer station. Next line item is 300 highways, for 3.458622. The increase is 104,824. We did hire, as you know, the public works director left. We did hire a new public works director at a salary that was lower than what Devin was making. We also, at the request of the public works director, eliminated a position of superintendent, and we eliminated that for efficiency and also for economic reasons. We're maintaining the paving line item of $1 million. I think that's something I'd like to see stay in there and try to catch up on our maintenance of our roads. Also, the tree warden line was moved from 240, as I stated before, safety and protection, to this line item, to this budget where it more appropriately belongs. Both the public works director and the deputy are tree wardens, and that's at a cost of $80,000. Recreation Commission is a request for 176,201, an increase of 15,269. There is a request for a full-time director. However, that is not in this budget at this time. There is a $20,000 stipend that could be considered as part of a beginning rec director if this budget goes through. It's still being discussed. I'm also working with the other two selectmen on an idea I have to perhaps consolidate something to maybe bolster that economy slightly in that budget line item. ARPA funds aren't any longer available. ARPA's gone. It used to fund the summer rec program. We now rely on dollars from the town and donation for summer rec. Some of this, we took stipends out last year. We put those back in at the request of the rec commission. They're nominal, but they are in the budget. Under parks, this includes purchase of a new piece of equipment that will line stripe the fields. It's a robotic type machine. We were actually talking about purchasing two of them. We're going to do one. It should save it should save money on time and labor, and also on material. I'll keep you posted on that. I'll have John, if it turns out to be reality, I'll have it reported at the selectmen's meeting on how that's going. Under holidays, this budget shows an increased cost for annual summer fireworks display, recognizing the 250th. I will say once again that the Stafford Savings Bank generously is offering $25,000 towards this event. Economic development, as I told you before, has an increase. It has an increase of $1,000. It had nothing before, but I think it's important to at least help bolster once again their efforts to bring revenues and recognize business in town. Under Conservation Commission, there's no change. That was $2,000. Arts Commission, there's no change. Under the Health District, there is an increase of $3,608. This is a cost that we pay to North Central Health District to be a part of that district, and that's that helps with our local sanitarium. Under debt service 48481, debt service is comprised of payments and interest borrowed on debt paid over a period of years. All of these projects were approved by the taxpayers at town meetings. Projects such as the installation of the solar fields, the upgrade of the water pollution control facility, infrastructure upgrades, including dams and bridges, the elementary school and high school renovations. Debt service is included in the overall Board of Selectmen's budget, which is approximately $3 million annually. Of this $3 million, the town receives a reimbursement of approximately $80,000 from the WPCA as an offset for the approved sewer infrastructure upgrades. The town does not receive any other reimbursements to this. There is a decrease of $404,675. Community center is a request of $251,958, an increase of $1,380. Family services is a $518,480, a request of an increase of $7,905. Family services provides counseling services for youth and adults. Anticipated revenue for billing on this is about $200,000. That can vary depending on Medicare, Medicaid and insurance payments, but we anticipate about a 200,000. Under transfer out, what is transfer out? What is it? There are line items that are the town budgets for each year that accumulate over fiscal years, and it's transferred into those special funds. So the town has money to do the necessary, pay for the necessary expenses. One great example of that is the revaluation. That's the cost over a 5-year period. Every 5 years you do a reval. Costs you $150,000. So $30,000 is in this budget. We'll do that for 5 years for a total of $150,000. Special revenue costs, we have money in there that we can keep in case someone retires, leaves town employment, and we have their buyouts under their negotiated contracts. We do have capital improvements program. We talked last year about bolstering this up slightly. The CIP was recommended by our town auditors, and we have already started it, but got credit through the audit for doing that. We have a contingency fund for unexpected emergencies or unforeseen risks. Once again, that was suggested as part of our audit. Under capital lease projects, the request is for $237,998. It's actually a decrease of $213,976. The decrease is a result of paying off 2 pieces of fire apparatus in 2025. I'm just going to show you the next slide. I'm sure that it's more important to the Board of Education. I say that, I don't mean to be disrespectful on that, but they do get special ed cost and ECS. The town gets LOSUP money, pilot money, as I stated before. This is in your packet. However, we are not geared in on this yet. The state has not given us any money, any figures, or any definites on these revenues. Just before I end, what's up next? Following the public hearing, the Board of Finance will meet to decide whether to ask for the budget adjustments or to send the printed budgets to the voters. An annual town meeting is scheduled for April 28th, as it is right now, at 6 p.m. at the Stafford Community Center. At this meeting, the 26-27 water pollution control facility and service district budgets will be voted on. Prior to this meeting, the Board of Selectmen will meet and remove the town and Board of Education budget from the town meeting call. That'll be item number 1, and send it to referendum. Referendum date is set for May 5th at Stafford Public Library from 6 to 8. Thank you for your patience. I know it was long. I will yield now to the next presenter.
Actually, question. Yeah, any questions or comments on the Board of Selectmen budget? Please step up to the microphone.
Thank you, Bill. Brian Bagley from Virginia Lane. One question that I have, and I'm looking at, I know you have it in, what is it, the 3rd page where it talks about the total general government, talking about the debt service that's there that covers services for the WCCA. Oh, sorry,
You're good.
Again, Brian Bagley from Virginia Lane. The question is regarding part of the debt service is a debt service to repay bonds for the WPCA. So I guess my understanding on this is that the residents of the town in general are paying for part of the water control facilities, entities, and some of the bills that they incur. That is part of our debt service. Is that correct?
That is my understanding.
Okay.
I do have the WPCA representative here. If I'm inaccurate at that, just let me know.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Next, we'd like to have Chris Franks. Welcome to present the library budget. And the same thing, after you're done presenting, question or comment, please.
Question on Bill setting, that's not
Right.
walking.
Sure, no problem, no problem.
Joe Tatro, long time Stafford prison. So Bill, we're taking out, or we're getting $400,000 in debt services relief. Plus it looks like a couple $100,000 in fire equipment that we're paying off.
Accurate. Yes.
So it's like 600. And you're just incorporating that back in to the budget.
Yeah, I take that,
With increasing it another 100,000,
yeah, we.
just so everybody understands.
Yes, I'm taking, I won't use the mic. Yes, we're taking, you know, when the bonds were set, the budgets were increased by that. So we are absorbing the I hope reduction in the budget by that amount. It helps to offset the bottom line.
No, I understand why you're doing it. I just want to make sure that everybody else in
That's
here hears that.
That's right.
Because we're really increasing the budget like 700, almost 750,000. Because we're getting money, the 400 and the 230. And it's going up.
From your perspective, it would have come down that amount.
Correct.
I did mention before that I take direction a lot from the CFOs in town. Something that we're trying to do is to incorporate and increase our CIP. So we stop the ups and the downs in the budget. 3 finance officers that I've worked with over the last 3 years have indicated that we keep going up and down. Take the money, put it in a CIP, develop a strategic plan, and that way you won't have these high increases and low budget figures, and try to stabilize the budget.
Yeah.
So that's the theory behind that, and that is accurate of what you're saying. It is incorporated in the
Yeah,
budget.
I understand. I just want to make sure that everybody here understands that the budget is actually increasing a lot more than what we're saying. That's all.
So thank you. I didn't mean to walk over you.
Right, Joe's fine. Thanks, Joe.
Good evening. My name is Chris Frank. I'm the library director. I'd like to very briefly, that's our budget up there, and it's also in the back. I'd like to briefly go line by line through the budget and explain what it's all about. So, okay, we have part-time employees and full-time employees at the library. The part-time, the first number, 1,004, it's 3.2, that's staff salary increase, plus a little bit of an overtime allotment for when people are sick, and that's also in there. That's per union contract.
Can you speak up a little bit?
Yes,
Yeah.
Okay.
That's better.
is that better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Microphone.
All right, the first line is for part-time salaries, that's part of their union contract. Second line administrative is my salary, that's also by contract. The third line is full-time salaries, that's by contract. The fourth line, FICA, is derived from salaries. The group health and life, this is a line that is driving a lot of what the increase is. Group health had a 13.4% increase. It went from 84 to 95,310. So that's a fixed cost that I can't really control. Retirement went up slightly. It went up 1,650. Longevity is part of the employees' compensation, and that went up slightly. The reason it went up a little bit was because the prior year's figure was miscalculated, but this 1,540 is the true number. Postage, that's $350. That's about enough for 3 rolls of stamps. We send out a minimal amount of mail, but overdue notices for overdue books, thank you letters, condolence letters, things of that nature. Continuing education, that's per union contract. We do have a small amount for people that want to go to graduate school for library science. We have an employee who's just got her master's degree in library science. Electricity, this is another big line that is affecting our budget. It went up 14% to $28,000. This year, we had a long, cold winter, and we have a geothermal system. So for the electric bill since December has been between $4,000 and $5,000 a month. So the only thing I can do is go on what the actual cost was for the prior year. So I'm hoping for a warmer winter next year, and maybe we won't need all that 28,000. Utilities water is a minimal increase in case the water bill goes up. Telephone, that is not increasing. And we are gonna go along with the town and the new phone system, and we should realize some savings. And also not have the liability of having old equipment that could possibly break down. The new phone system will be completely internet-based. Office and library supplies, that's mostly library supplies. And that includes things like book jackets, book laminate, book labels, receipt tape that you get when you check out books and we give you the due date slip. It's that kind of thing. Office supplies, we tend to really recycle a lot of stuff and get donations, or just, we try to be very frugal about that. Printing paper is a big cost. People come in the library and do a lot of printing. Oh, I think I skipped over maintenance. That's line 3330. Our maintenance cost is primarily in our printer contract that the town uses with American Business Solutions, and they provide all the toner and they maintain all of our printers and copiers, which all of that is rather old. We wait till things break before we replace. So that's the 6,100 from that line. It was 8,500, but the town has come up with a plan to eliminate the dumpsters in all buildings, to include the library. So the public works will be picking up the trash. So there was a realization of 2,400, well, it says $1,900 in savings in that line. It's actually $2,400 because I had increased the maintenance line slightly from the prior year. Okay, sorry for that skip over there. I'll go back to line 5,200. Mileage, professional dues, and travel. Okay, that is old. That title of that line has not changed for several years, but there's no mileage because if we have to go anywhere, we can use the town electric vehicles. And there's no travel to speak of because for the same reason. And we don't go and we don't travel, we don't. So it's really that line, professional dues, 1,290. That is for professional dues in 3 organizations: the Connecticut Library Consortium, which is a discount negotiating organization that gets us a 46% discount on books and gets us all kinds of library discounts. It's well worth it. We also belong to a statewide catalog. It's called Find It CT. If you go on your browser and you want to find a book and you want to find out what library owns it, you just type in finditct.org, I think it is, and it'll just tell you which library has it. And our library catalog is included in that, but there's a fee for that. And there's also a small fee to belong to the ACLB, the Association of Connecticut Library Boards. That is an advisory group for the library board, mainly around, if they have to hire a new director, if they have to create a policy, they have that resource to consult with. Okay, the next one I want to talk about is books. We had a big budget cut last year. Our book budget for 24-25 was $35,000. But as you know, we had several referenda this year. And to meet our mandated amount that we had to cut, we cut our book budget from $35,000 to $18,255. And I am seeking to not increase that amount because I'm trying to keep the budget as reasonable as possible for the residents. It was recommended to me by a few different people to try to recoup some of the $35,000, but the board and the library board and I made the hard decision to just keep the library book budget static. And by the way, most of everything from the top to line 5,400 is pretty much a fixed cost. You know, the only discretionary costs I have are books, office supplies, capital equipment and programs. So I just want to make everyone aware that we held the line on the book budget. And we did that, we realized the savings by cutting some of our book purchasing, cutting a significant amount of our e-content, our ebook purchasing, and magazines also. We reduced that quite a bit. Okay, capital equipment is a line, capital equipment, we've been rather fortunate that we haven't had to have any major capital improvements over the years, so we kept it as unfunded, 0. And programs it's a small amount, $2,000. We have several story times every month. We have 2 art programs a month. We have a summer reading program. We have winter recess programs. We have programs throughout the year, and that $2,000 allows our staff coordinator and children's librarian to provide things to support the programs. It's mainly like art supplies and low-cost performers and so forth. Does anyone have any questions about this budget?
Again, what was the longevity?
The longevity is if an employee works for, I think it's 5 years or longer, they get a small percentage of, it's a payment that they get annually. If they work for service to the town.
Thank you.
Excuse me, sir, just a second. Sorry. Brian Bagley again from Virginia Lane. The question I have is on the electricity, where you're increasing and things like that. I know this has been a tough year and things, but the solar panels, my understanding, the solar panels that are up, okay, in the town are covering the education side of the house and they're covering the town side of the house. And typically there are credits that are earned on a monthly basis. Okay, the credits are a result of the savings. If you generate enough electricity that goes over what your usage is, there's a credit that's assigned. And that's used for future. Okay, and there's generally always a credit that's assigned there that a lot of times gets kind of used in the summertime, okay? Or the wintertime, excuse me, because of like what you're talking about. But I mean, that seems like a fairly significant increase, 14.7% over the town paying for the electric bills for all of the town facilities based on that solar panel. So I mean, that's just, but you're saying that was the increase that you're gonna be expecting next year?
Yes, I can explain that. For several years, we're part of the geothermal project, and we are supposed to be getting credits for solar. But how it was described to me is that it's the number of sunny days that you have, or if you have a lot of overcast days and you have a lot of really cold temperatures, the solar credits aren't as effective, or you don't get as many as if you had a mild winter and a lot of sunny days. And last year, for several years, I was always told, if you look at where it says 25, 26, where it says 24,411, that was always what I was told. I get this number from the finance office. And last year, we never went over 24,000. We always gave money back to the town. But that used to go toward the bond or the fund for the geothermal project. I don't really control the electricity bills. I don't get them. I don't see them. I don't submit them. But last year it went to $27,000. At the end of 24-25, the bill was $27,000 and we had to transfer money into that. So therefore, after speaking with the finance officer, I said, if that's our actual cost is 28, that's what I have to do because I'm on the hook for that, you know, so if I have to give the accurate number.
100%. No, I'm just trying to get a little clarity. That's all.
Yeah.
So in 2024-25 we had a $27,000 electric bill.
Yes.
Wow. And that's after all the solar that was accumulated by the town went and paid that off.
Yes, that's my understanding.
Okay, well, yeah, I guess you don't see the bill, so you don't really, okay. No problem. Thank you very much. I
Sure.
appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Derek Dimick, Munson Road. You pay $373,100 in salaries at the library. What is that? How many employees is that for full-time and part-time?
Okay.
That seems like a lot of money for library, salaries.
Well, I can explain it to you. We're open, first of all, 51.5 days, 51.5 hours a week, 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday. We're open 3 nights, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. And we have 5 part-time employees to include a custodian that works 5 days a week. And we have 5 full-time employees, 4 plus me. So the reason that we have those employees is that we have a full-time children's and youth services librarian. We have me, we have a full-time person that works in adult services that does interlibrary loan. She also does, she's my admin assistant. She also takes care of our computer system. We have another full-time person who does tech support with people. He does programming, he does children's programs, he does reference. We all sit on the main desk also. We have another person who, we have to have someone who's in charge of trying to track down overdue books. That's called the circulation manager, but that's like a technical term. But that person does the schedule for the entire library, and she works on the circulation desk, and she tries to recoup long overdue or missing materials. Then we have 3 part-time people that work at the desk. They're called library assistants. And they're just for reference, we used to have more employees. We used to have a teen services librarian and a children's librarian. We consolidated that into one position called the youth services librarian, therefore losing 1 employee. We used to have a shelver. We used to have a part-time person, like a high school student, do shelving. We do the shelving. I typically do shelving on Friday afternoon, but everyone does shelving. We used to have a computer technician that would help people maintain the computers and help people with computer issues, or if they didn't know how to download a PDF, or they didn't know how to make a Word document, they didn't know how to make a spreadsheet. We used to have an employee that used to do that. We don't have that employee anymore. We do that ourselves. And we used to have 1 more library assistant. So we have 10 employees, and they make the librarians, the people who are librarians, make significantly less than they do in other towns. The library assistants make just over minimum wage, and they make about what the going rate is. And I make less than the typical director makes. So if you're asking me why it costs that much, it's because that's how much it costs to have those people and to provide the service that we provide.
And you're saying you have IT, support. Why don't we, bundle the IT in town, since we do, other town, work with building officials? How come we don't have just a certain number? Why don't we bundle our IT?
Well,
departments?
we do use the town's IT. When I'm talking about IT, is I'm talking about somebody comes in with their phone and they says, oh, I got this document, I don't know how to get it off my phone. We'll say, okay, you can forward it to us and we'll print it off for you. We're thinking about getting a wireless printer, but that's of course gonna cost money. So we don't have an IT person. We utilize the town's IT, and we also have some support from our network, but we don't have any IT costs per se.
Okay, and then the electric costs, I mean, through all the departments in town, I see, an uptick in electric costs. We pay 1.4 million on solar project bonds a year. Where's the savings? Why is your electric going up where we have solar? Where is the savings in the solar?
I can't speak to that, sir. I have no control over that, but
I guess that would be a question for Bill.
I could probably answer that.
Okay.
When we first, is there any other questions for the, oh, hold on.
Yeah, my name is Leonard Clark, 29 Westford Road. I'm also chairman of the. The solar that's on the library was installed there by a company that installed it for free. There was no charge for the solar that's on the library. When that company installed that solar, they kept what was called the ZREC. So they got the ZREC income, the library did not. All the library gets from that solar is the amount of energy that it produces. So, and then in the winter time, when that solar that's on the roof is covered with snow, it doesn't charge, you don't get any power out of that. So up to, that's why you're seeing the increases probably, this past winter when it required, the geothermal required a lot more electricity to run and keep the library heated. So, that's the story on solar on the library.
So we have solar in the library, it gets covered over with snow. I have solar on my house. I clean my panels off in the winter so I can still produce. I mean, if we have these panels on buildings and the ones at the transfer station, I'll go by there, they'll never be cleaned off. You're hoping that they melt off. Well, we're not making any money with panels that are covered with snow. We pay all this money for solar panels, but they're not being maintained. The winter time, they should be cleaned off so they can make electricity. You're not saving any money by leaving them covered over.
Understood. To answer your initial question about, you see all the departments in there, you also. When you see all the departments have energy costs,
Yeah,
including the school, including the, just about every department. That is a set amount that they contribute toward the total electricity. In other words, we have that $1.4 million bond payment every year. And the solar arrays do produce electricity, which we use it to get a discount. We put it into the solar fund to pay that bill. But all departments are supposed to contribute, just like they would have before the solar was there, in order to help pay it. That's why you see each department having expenses.
so if we have solar panels and they're covered with snow all winter, you're not producing any energy. It needs to be
Understood.
cleaned off.
Understood.
So we're paying for something that isn't giving us anything back.
Understood.
And then we have 74,000 in the budget for solar maintenance. Why is that in the budget for us
Are you
taxpayers?
asking about the selectmen's budget?
The what?
The selectmen's budget?
Yeah, well, yeah,
So we were just talking about the board, the library budget.
okay.
Mr. Morrison, would you like to answer that question?
Yeah, that's under the building, with Bruce.
Yeah.
There he is. That's for solar maintenance in the mechanical aspect of that. Is that not accurate?
Yes, it's for panel replacement, inverter replacement, mowing of the solar fields and the annual O&M contracts for these. We hire a contractor to come out and do an O&M on them, check the inverters, make sure that the wires are tight, there's no hot spots, there's no broken panels, there's no disconnected strings, no blown fuses.
So shouldn't that money come out of the solar energy fund?
That's not my decision, sir.
Shouldn't that money come out of the solar energy fund, Bill?
Maybe we can look at that, but I think.
I mean, why is the taxpayers paying for 74,000 each year when that should be incorporated with the energy fund?
That'd be a realistic, expense,
It would be an expense no matter where you put it.
Right.
In other words, if you're taking out of the solar fund, that's an expense to the taxpayer. You put it there. So if that's the expense for the maintenance, it's gonna be charged one way or another through one of the funds.
So does the town own the solar panels or we lease them?
We lease them.
We lease. Them. So I lease my panels, I don't own them. So the repairs are on the solar company.
All depends on your agreement.
We own
Everybody
them.
got a different.
We own them.
Well, if you don't own them, you don't own them.
We own them, but we're
But there's
paying a
maintenance
lease
agreement.
payment to
Yeah.
own them. So we will own them in, I believe, 2 years.
2031.
2031.
So then that $1.4 million, we will no longer have a bond payment
Correct,
as of 2031.
correct. Okay,
Can I get a copy of that loan solar agreement?
sure. Lynn, can you write that down, please?
Yeah.
Make sure she gets it to you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now for the last presentation will be the Board of Education. Chairman Erica Boucher and Superintendent Scott Sugarman will be giving that.
Hi, I'm Erica Bouchard. Hi, I'm Erica Bouchard, Chair of the Board of Education. Can you hear me okay? Is this better? I will start again. Erica Bouchard, Chair of the Board of Education. On behalf of the Board of Education and the Superintendent, thank you all for being here and hearing us tonight as we share our budget with you. I just want to walk you through what it takes for the board to get this whole process to you. To change sides, please. Our budget starts in September, right when school starts. The board establishes a calendar that we follow. So we have to meet certain deadlines to get it to you on time. So we establish that calendar very early in the year. And the administration is behind the scenes figuring out this budget before they even bring it to us. Thank you. This was new for us this year. In the 5 years I've been on the board, this is the first time we've ever seen a zero balance budget approach, which means they didn't just roll up last year's budget. They started with zero and built what the school actually needed. What did kids need? What was needed for their curriculum? So it was a nice, fresh approach for us to see, like, all right, this is what the school actually needs. Instead of rolling it up and then like, all right, we gotta cut this, we have to cut this, we have to cut this to get it down to a percent that the town can actually approve. So the board appreciated this new approach. It really brought to us a reasonable budget and what the school actually needed. So behind the scenes, central office and all the admin went through their departments. They presented to the board in December, before our budget process really kicked into gear, and highlighted the strengths within districts, what was going well and where they wanted to see their school move to. So this kind of launched off like where all the buildings were at. Then we got into all our budget workshops where we had all these mini presentations. The superintendent explained next steps, where the budget started from. And then the board gave feedback of what we wanted to see, where we wanted the percent to fall, what we value in our district. On March 10th, we finally came to a consensus of what we felt was appropriate. We were back and forth on a lot of line items, and I can assure you it is very tough to maintain that balance of what is best for our students here in Stafford, my kids, your kids, the kids of the town, and staying fiscally responsible. It is a very hard line to walk, and we think we did a great job this year. We have some great things that are inbuilt into this budget. The middle school has this great STEAM program going on and they want to keep on expanding it. That's in our budget. The high school has expanded their careers pathway at our last budget meeting, March 10th. Mr. Plecha explained that that is a great program that is going to hopefully keep kids here, not go to Rockville or Wyndham, which increases our budget, our transportation. We have to pay those districts. Keeping kids here are important. Their families here, their friends are here. We want them here. And these new programs are going to help keep them here. And again, it stayed within our budget, what the board thought was appropriate that the town could get behind and support. So our proposed budget increase for the district is a 4.5% increase. Some big drivers, again, you've heard this throughout the whole entire presentation. Insurance is a huge driver for us. We are maintaining, if you've watched our board meetings every month, we are watching our insurance rates. We are trying to maintain that, but we have to add to that fund so we don't go over budget. In addition, I believe it's a $300,000 increase for our transportation line item, and we have cut 2 buses and we're still a $300,000 increase. Some of these are mandated due to outplacement of students, buses to other districts. So these are things that we cannot control at all. I'm gonna turn it over to Mr. Sugarman now, Superintendent of Schools, to walk through the entire budget very detailed. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I am Scott Sugarman. I am the superintendent here in Stafford Public Schools. I appreciate the opportunity to come here and talk publicly with everyone, because when I'm building a budget, yes, at the center of that budget is always the students, but Stafford is home, right? And Stafford makes up of various stakeholders. It's not just the stakeholders who we interact with every day. It's a community of stakeholders, right? It is the taxpayers of the larger community. And it's even folks that no longer send their students to Stafford, are things that we factor in and we think about as we're building a fiscally responsible budget. So we're going to walk through some of that right now. Our mission of Stafford and what we're doing every day is to provide a really enriching environment for students. Next slide. And we're building that budget really around our strategic plan. What are strategic initiatives that we're trying to do to, one, stabilize our work with students, and where are there opportunities in a fiscally responsible way to enhance some of the work that we're doing with students? Next slide. This is our district demographics, and I think it's important to note a couple of things here. One, our student enrollment has stayed flat from last year to this year. We do our October 1 count, so this is data as of October 1. It has actually increased since October 1, but that is the federal state reporting data, so it's good for us to stay consistent. So it's 1,258 students. It's important to note that 45.7% of our student populations are classified as high needs, and I'll talk a little bit more about that going forward. Second, this is also our demographic by makeup. You know, our Hispanic and Latino population, our multiple race, that we're more of a diverse community than many people think. And providing those supports and services is important for us as a district. I want to spend a little bit of time here quickly and go through. I understand a lot of stakeholders in the room might no longer have students in school and attended school various times. A while ago, people think that the classroom is just, you know, you got 20 kids, they're all the same, one size fits all. That is no longer the case. And it's important to note that, because with that changing environment, a change in need and services and support is also needed. So now the classroom environment is, you're coming in right away with around almost half of your students classified as high needs, right? They're students with disabilities, students of low socioeconomic status, students who don't get meals at home and their only meals are at school. You then also have students that come in who have IEPs and 504s, students that come in and start off right away not on grade level. So the classroom environment space is vastly different, much more colorful in a lot of ways, but a lot more needs in that classroom space that every teacher is dealing with. Before. Again, our high need population, this is a breakdown of our high need student population by building. SES, for those that don't know, that's our elementary school, our high school, middle school, and West Stafford is our pre-K building. As our district, we have a lot of successes, right? You all, as people that pay taxes and contribute to the local contribution of our district, should be proud of the return of the investment you're getting. We have one of the best high schools in our DIRG in the state. People don't realize that. You all need to know that. Yes, we have things that we need to improve every day. And so we're striving for that perfection every day. And we're never going to get there, right? But we're always going to strive for that, because that's what the community needs. That's what our stakeholders need. We have, oh, sorry, you go ahead. Okay. We have a very high graduation rate, over 90% for 12 years. We have a large amount of students taking AP classes, which they're getting college credits for those classes. Gonna click forward again. We have one of the best science scores across the entire state, not just our DIRG. So our students in science which is a culmination of elementary, middle, and in high school. They take the NGSS exam. All of our students scored in the top 12% in the state of Connecticut, beating Summers, which people here have rivalry with Summers, right? E.O. Smith, right? Woodstock Academy, right? Some of these places that people think are like this mountain, this grandiose thing on the top of a mountain. Stafford is that mountain for a lot of those places, and it's important to note that. Important. This is our breakdown of our ET per position. So our top 5 positions are our teachers, paraeducators, maintenance custodians, secretaries, and food service. People providing direct services to our students make up our largest population of FTE count. Full-time equivalent or full-time employee is that FTE count, with teachers by far and away the largest group of employees. Next slide. This is our breakdown of student enrollment. The green and white tracks the cohort. So what you'll see is, easier for me to come up here. This is our 11th grade number. This is the track to what the 11th graders are as 12th graders this year. So you'll see some increases along the way. The biggest number that we're targeting, right, with the work at the high school with our career pathways is this decrease from 8th grade to 9th grade, right? We're looking to increase that number back up to a much more stable number. But the overall student enrollment count as of October 1 is an increase of 2 students. Next slide. And again, this is tracking our mid-year enrollment trends. So typically it's important to note, yes, we tag our October 1 count for state and federal reporting, but we're also tracking our enrollment count every month. And we always kind of consistently see an increase from October to June throughout the year. And we're planning for that June enrollment count going into the next school year. I want to pause here for just a quick moment, maybe spend a little bit of time on this slide than others. I understand that there's always a narrative in a community like Stafford and other communities around, well, if our enrollment has gone down, why hasn't our FTE count go down? In Stafford, it has. So this graph is showing our student enrollment count in 2020 was 1,338 students, and our FTE count at the time was 346 FTE. Our FTE count has gone in 5 years from 346 to 270, as our student enrollment count has also decreased. So we are responding to changing environment, but with that response, there's been a cost, right? We've had to change the way we do some of our business, the way we operate and have systems and operations in our district, because that is a significant decrease in FTE count. Some student classes have gone up, and the supports that we're able to provide to our schools has also changed. Next slide. This is a graph that just shows our enrollment projections. We typically project our enrollment. We contract with different agencies to give us enrollment projections, to be planning for the future, which is showing starting in around 2027, a stabilization of enrollment projections. They're looking at birth count. They're looking at all sorts of data that they have access to as researchers to give us enrollment projections, so we can start to be thinking about future planning as a district. This is a slide, I'm going to come back to this theme a couple times. This is important to note, and I don't think this has been clearly communicated in the community of Stafford over the time. Our overall, our overall PPE, so our per pupil expenditure, what the cost is per pupil in Stafford, is typically right around state average, which is a little bit over 20,000. However, the blue is what the local contribution is. So what we are asking taxpayers to contribute, because the other part of the bar graph is what we get through grants, state revenue, and other revenue sources to generate that overall amount. So that local contribution, which is the blue, is what we have to generate in taxes from the stakeholders as yourselves. Next slide. This is a slight comparison between us and that town down the road that will not be named. This is us comparing to Summers in terms of local revenue contribution over time, since 2018 up until 24, which was the most accurate data we had from summers. There's a growing gap there, right? And back in 2018, at the time, Stafford locally, the local contribution was contributing more than summer, dollar for dollar. But now that gap has significantly grown, where Summers has increased the local contribution to over 5 million, where Stafford's increase has been just a little over 2.1 million. Next slide. Again, this is another thing too as well, and I'm highlighting a point here, is if you look at our budget, what's been approved and what our budget was, if you factor in the annual inflation rate over time, we've separated ourselves from what that annual inflation rate has been. And that's been an impact to us. We've had to adjust course and how we do business every day, because that annual inflation rate, we have not maintained pace with that. Next slide. So when we're working on our budget and building that budget process, we're looking at it, making sure we're aligning with our strategic plan, being fiscal responsibility to the taxpayers, being transparent. We started this process as the board chair highlighted back in September. We had multiple budget workshops. All of our information is on our website. We have at the library our detailed budget that's available for people to come up, pick up a hard copy. It's also at central office. I'm also available if anyone just at any point just has a question, not just here. We want to be as transparent as possible. I'm going to click through. No, you can go ahead. I'll roll with you. I want to click through these pretty quickly. We had multiple budget workshops. So we had our first public budget workshop January 6th, where the principals highlighted their needs. We had another budget workshop. There you go. Later in January, where we talked about other aspects where we could reduce and find some cost savings in our budget. We had another budget workshop in February where we talked about the budget where there's further reductions that we could come down. We also talked about this at regular board meetings along the way in January, in February, and in March going forward as well. We came back with over 600 and slightly over $650,000 in total reductions. So cuts to our budget. There's some staffing reductions that we've made. There's reductions of 2 transportation routes. There's some admin support reductions that we've made. We've also identified some additional reductions in our computer refresh cycle, taking a pause on that, allowing us as a district to look at what are we doing long-term with our technology use as a district, and some other reductions in building services, central office supplies, and so forth, to give us our overall budget, which the board unanimously adopted at our March meeting of $31,938,183 for an increase of $1.375,328. Slide. I'm going to walk through some of the line items of our budget. Just so you know, with our budget, I know as the first selectman talked about it, it was kind of by department. Since the Board of Ed is kind of one big department, our line items and object codes are slightly different. So we have a 300 object code, which is purchase professional services, 400 repairs, 500, which is other purchase services, transportation, tuition costs. 600 is a combination of 600 utilities, 600 instructional supplies and building supplies. 700 is property, equipment, and software, and 800 is debt services. 100 is our salaries, and 200 is our insurance, our insurance liabilities. When you look at the detailed budget, which there's copies in the back too as well, you'll see different codes associated with the budget. This gives you a breakdown of the codes and how they work within a school district. The first 3-digit code is the funding source. So where's the money coming from to fund this object code or this line? The next is the site, what department or school. The next object code is associated with, is this a salary? Is this benefits? The next object code, which is the 4-digit, is for tracking to state reporting. We audit with the town, but we also audit to the state. That object code is for state reporting. And then some of the other object codes are for internal control object codes. Next slide. So our 100 and 200 object codes, which is our salaries and our benefits, are some of our more significant increases. We have an increase of $495,920 for our salary object code, which is majority of our salaries most of our salaries are associated to contracts within our bargaining units. Our employee benefit object code is $969,000 increase. $959,000 of that is insurance. So our insurance is the significant piece of the budget. That is the most significant budget driver. Our purchase services makes up things like outside contracted services that we're obligated to provide for special ed, legal fees, working with our Board of Ed attorney, outside services, different trainings that we have to provide the district. We have a reduction of $68,934 there. And property services makes up things such as our water usage, utilities, propane. Stafford Board of Ed uses all of the energy sources that you can use except nuclear. We use propane and gas and oil and solar and geothermal. We use it all. And we do have a increase there of 51,774. Next slide.
Decrease.
Decrease. I thought I said that. Thank you for holding me accountable. Next slide. Other purchase services, transportation costs, tuition costs is associated here. We do have some areas in our 500 where we have an increase. We also have a decrease in some areas. Overall, the variance is $150,000, $150,250. The majority of that increase is transportation. Transportation before we reduced to bus routes was over a $500,000 increase. We reduced 2 bus routes. 1 bus route cost us around $70,000 per year. We reduced 2 to bring that number down to a more reasonable number. Instructional supplies, books, and periodicals are the stuff that we need to deliver instruction to our students. We have an overall decrease of $6,901. Our building services budget, I'm sorry, I think I misspoke. The building services budget is a lot of our utility costs associated in that budget. There is an increase there of $84,477. Our library of media supplies includes like periodicals and books to refurbish our library. The books that we need is an increase of $12,040. Our property is a decrease of $36,881. And our dues and fees, an example of a due and a fee, we're putting on a musical in May. Please go online and buy your tickets now. It's Cinderella at the beginning of May. But we have to pay a fee to be able to put on that, performance for our students, right? We are part of different membership groups to get access to materials and resources. So dues and fees makes up quite a bit of things, but there is a decrease there of $9,216. Slide. One thing I just want to highlight here with this slide, and I think this is important to note, what this shows is the blue going back to 2015 is what the Board of Ed adopted. And the green is what was appropriate, what was the final town vote budget. What we're showing here is every year there is a decrease of some numerical value, which makes sense. Like that, in the town of Stafford, that will happen, right? Hey, we need to bring it back a little bit, But what happened last year? On average, if you factor in from 2015 to 2025, the average decrease in what the Board of Ed asked for to what was appropriated to the town was $427,000. Last year, which means this fiscal year, it was $2.2 million. So it was such an anomaly. And I get it. I understand. I respect the voter. But that amount of decrease, we are now clawing our way out of that. That is not a 1-year impact to a school district, right? That is going to carry over for a couple of years in us to kind of restabilize what we're doing a little bit. Next slide. I think it's important to note, you can keep going. Thanks, Amber. We have several grants that we manage as a district. And so this is just quickly kind of highlighting some of our grants and what they're providing services for. So we have Early Start School Readiness Grant, which helps fund our pre-K services that we're providing to students. It's about over $200,000. significant amount of that is go to instructional value, so we can hire staff to support and provide extra classrooms for pre-K students. Next slide. We have an FRC that we provide. FRC provide services to families, they have play groups, they also provide before and after care services to families. It's around $111,000. The majority of that, 98,000 of that, is to the staff to provide that level of support. Next slide. IDA, which is our largest grant, it's over $370,000. IDA is special education. So this is our special education funds that we get from the federal government. It comes through us through the state. Again, significant a portion of that, over $320,000, is instructional supply, special ed teachers, paraeducators, to provide special ed services for our students. Next slide. Title I is the services for school and for student success. It's targeting turnaround, it's targeting high need populations, providing intervention. Again, it's through the federal government is funding this. It's just under $250,000. And again, a significant portion of that, over 240 of that, is for staffing. Next slide. Title II, right, which is supporting effective instruction through professional learning opportunities. PD, this is how a lot of ways we provide professional development for our staff as a district. We get just under $30,000 of that. Again, a small piece of that is going to teacher leadership stipends. So we can train teachers to provide training and support in district to hopefully save costs down the road. But over $20,000 of that is going to professional development. Title III, Title IV. Title III is to provide instruction for multi-language learners. Title IV is to provide a well-rounded educational space, enhanced technology. Some districts that have larger money here might use it to provide gifted and talented programming. Next slide. And then again, we have an after-school grant. We're one of the few districts across the state that receive this competitive after-school grant. It allows us to provide aftercare at SES for families across the town. Key budget drivers, almost done. Key budget drivers, these are our three big drivers, right? So out of that 1.37 million, I know that's not exact, but out of that number, the majority of that is made up out of insurance increase, our transportation increase, and utility cost increase, right? Next slide. Again, I know that you'll hear this in other communities about special ed being a big driver. We are trying and working really hard to be extremely fiscally responsible with our special ed, trying to beat students back to district, trying to increase our in-district programming. Right now, we're projecting a little over $200,000 savings in special ed costs going into next year. That's tuition costs for students. But we've also identified a new waste management contract to save money, looking at reduction and doing some things differently with our capital improvement or capital project reviews. And as I said, we paused our student Chromebook refresh cycle to give us the time to look at what we want to do long-term with student access to technology. Again, so if we just rolled over the budget, you know, just blindly just, okay, roll it over and let's not do anything, we're closer to $33.6 million, right? But when you look at that, we're factoring in what we need as a district. We're looking at our fiscal revenue, the fiscal revenue that we generate. We're looking at reductions that we need to make proactively. We made over $650,000 of reductions as a district, which gives us our appropriation. This is the point I want to emphasize. When you take our $31.9 million approved budget that the board adopted, now you have to factor in and minus out the revenue that we receive. And the big chunk of revenue is educational cost share grant from the state of Connecticut. That's a little over 9.5 million. So the local contribution is what we're asking of the tax base, which is that $22.386 million. Next slide. Again, this is just highlighting that point again when we're talking about what we're asking the local contribution. Our budget right now is a little $30.5 million. We're getting 2/3 of that, right, from local taxpayers. 1/3 of that is not from the taxpayers. It's from other revenue sources to provide our full budget. And I think that's important for the tax base to know that $30.5 million is not coming from the town staff. Nope. So I just want to highlight that point too as well. You can go to the next slide. And again, these are the next step that First Selectman kind of already talked about of where we're at in the process. But I wanted to walk through some key aspects of our budget. Again, the detail of those object codes are in the back. They're available on our website. And I will stay up here if there's any questions. So thank you.
Yes. As you're reducing the budget, you're not reducing the services,
Correct.
correct?
Correct.
So as long as the services are not getting reduced, reducing the budget's not hurting.
At this point, no. So even with the reduction that happened last year, we've had to change how we operate, right? To make sure we're still providing the services that we need to provide. The reductions we did here, we went to the maximum amount of reductions before we started to have to change service. And we talk about change service where, oh, we potentially have to increase a class size where we don't want to, right? So with the budget presented, it's a budget of stability.
With the reduction of the federal government on education, is that hurting state taxpayers?
I think that's out of my purview right now. You know,
What I'm saying?
I get it. So, yes, we've had to manage and keep an eye on what has happened at the federal level, of course. Because that trickles down to the state, which then gets filtered to us. And so if there's a reduction in our revenue, then there's an increase on local contribution, right? And so we do keep a close eye on it. There was a lot of chatter in the fall about some holding back of funds that didn't come to fruition. So we don't anticipate that right now. We do anticipate a level of stability. And we do hopefully anticipate, even though right now it's projected that our ECS funding from the state is going to be flat, there is a potential during this legislative session that there might be an overall increase of $150 million to that pot for the entire state, which might come around to about 2% coming to us as an increase. So if we do get an increase in ECS funding from the state, then what we would be asking from the local contribution would then go down.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On the insurance costs, say it's almost $1 million a year. Do the Board of Education employees have a cost share of that
Yes,
insurance?
yeah, they do.
What's the percentage?
It depends on bargaining unit. So all of our contracts for bargaining units are on our website, but also at the town website. So don't quote me on the exact amount. Our administrator cost share is typically higher, so it's closer to like a 20-80, meaning 20% from the employee, 80% from the employer. Teaching bargaining unit is a slightly different cost share. So it's slightly more to the employer and it's slightly less to the employee. I think it's around 18, I'm looking at our HR and right, it's around 18% to the employee. Our CSEA bargaining unit, which makes up of secretaries, paras, custodians, food service, is the lowest cost share, which is, I think is right now around 14-15% employee, 12, even less. So, because that bargaining unit makes the less amount of money. So their cost share, the employer is contributing more to their insurance.
Then I see your graph on how much you've lost over the years for budgets, but you also lost almost 100 employees from those over those years. So, I mean, employees are the driving factors of costs.
Correct.
So of course, those costs are gonna go down over the years.
I think what I was highlighting there was there's two different, so there's been a gradual decrease since 2015, but there was a significant jump, what happened going into this current fiscal year from last year. And then same thing with the employee, you'll see in that graph, if we went back to it, jump back to it, there was kind of this gradual decrease in FTE and this sharp kind of decline from last year because it was 2.2 million, so there was more employees that got reduced, yeah. No problem.
Sherman? Excuse me, not as mobile as I,
Fine, you look good.
I respect what your school board has done. I've gone to a couple meetings of the school board and I'm really impressed by what's going on. But the increase now, especially for us senior citizens, is really ill timed. We have a situation where we're not getting 4.5% increases in our retirements. We're experiencing like the rest of the town an increase in everything. We own our houses, we're happy here, we've lived here most of our lives. But we cannot afford this year a 4.5% increase. 4.5 doesn't sound like a lot until you start talking total dollars. And your increase is roughly 10% of the total selectmen's budget. Okay? So that's a big increase.
I think it's important to note that, but our budget is double of what the selectmen's budget.
Well, it's almost 2.5%, but the reality of the situation is the usual refrain that comes from voting for the school budget is it's for the kids. But in reality, it's not. And the reason is this, you're raising the taxes on those kids' parents. They have to pay more in taxes. They're also getting kids, thank God they do, that grow. So they need more clothes. The clothes costs go up. They have to go to work. The gas prices are going up. Everything those kids' parents are going through is going up. The food that goes on the plate of that child is going up. There comes a time where your request would be 150% great. Not this year. Okay, that's what I'm trying to say. We've had, in the last 2 years, the school board has gotten, or should have gotten the message that the town isn't growing. We haven't increased our manufacturing base. We haven't significantly increased the stores and shops that we're getting revenue from. And without that increases, we can't afford it. Most of the people who are here are not going to see a 3, 4, or 5% increase in their income. They're lucky if they see 2% increase in their income. You're asking for 4.5%. Your 4.5% is $1.3 million, which divided by the 12,000 is a lot of money. Okay. So what I'm asking you to do, it's not easy for you to do. But we don't want to go through 3 more cycles of voting down the budget because we can't support it. You've already had 2 years seeing that the taxpayers of the town of Stafford are not seeing a massive increase in their revenue. And without that revenue, they can't pay their taxes. So hopefully the school board would have taken that into effect. That yes, maybe you need the money. And I'm not debating whether you do or you're not. All I'm saying is this may not be the year that we can afford to give you that money. Okay, and what I'm asking you to do is to go back, look a little harder. To see where you can cut. Can you cut administrative costs? Can you cut other costs that will save money? Because it's getting to the point where I can't afford my house. And I'm not the only one here who's facing those kind of taxes. We're only gonna see a third reduction in the rate. We'll probably go from 39 to like 26 or 27 mils. That's still a lot of money when our houses have gone up 50%. What I'm pleading for you here is to think of the taxpayers who can't afford to pay for your school budget. You do a great job, have a job to do. But the school board has two functions. One, to see that you provide a good education, and you're doing it. The other is to do it at a rate that the town people can afford. And this, with all that's going on right now, all the massive increases in heating and gas and everything else, we, the people, cannot afford it, especially the senior citizens. So what I'm asking you is please go back, rethink your increases. I know you've got massive increases in insurance. I know you've got massive increases in other areas which are beyond your control. But there are other areas that are in your control. And please go back and look for more reductions, because it's gonna get to the point where senior citizens who are basically just on Social Security are not gonna be able to afford their houses. And if they can't afford their houses and they can't afford to sell them either, then the town's not gonna be collecting taxes and you're not gonna have anything going on. So this year, please, with all the disasters that our current situation is seeing, the wars, the increases in gas prices, the increases in everything. Please try to reduce that budget.
Thank you. Can we have your name and address, please?
Ray Dado, Wellington Avenue.
Thank you.
It wasn't a question, so I want to be respectful to your public comment. Yeah.
Direct question. It's a statement.
That's why I want to be respectful of that. Yeah.
Hi, Greg Sorockman from Meadowbrook Drive. As it turns out, I'm an educator and I am liable to inherit your students at some point. I teach at the college level, so I'm very curious in your approach to the budget, especially with that huge shortfall last year. And having watched that, you've gone from a staff of 300 and some odd to rough estimate, 25% loss in staff. What are the negative student outcomes that you are seeing because of those budget shortfalls? What are the things that we would be funding by making sure you have the money available? And I'd be curious, how many years is it going to take in your estimation to recover from that very large shortfall from last year?
Sure. We don't have gifted and talented program anymore. We don't have enough social workers. We don't have enough special ed staff. We don't have school psychologists. Because of all of that, just bucket itself, we have increased out of contracted costs because we have to provide special ed services to our students. If we are contracting speech pathologists, OT services, school psych services, potentially RBT services, social worker services, that is all at minimum 30% more than if we were able to hire our own staff. But the service doesn't go away. We still have to provide that legally mandated services for the students of Stafford. We've lost access to band. We've lost access to world language. We've lost access to some athletic coaches, right? Have to contract out our athletic trainer services. So it's hard to put an actual number on it. We have increase in chronic absenteeism that we've been trying to manage and bring down. We have increase in student behavior because students are coming with need. We have parents that have more need for a variety of reasons. We have grandparents that have now turned back into parents. That has increased over the time. And so we are providing support for the child, but indirectly, we are providing support for families as well. So by losing all of those things, the way I look at it is this, the way we've talked about it as our admin team is this. When you as a district are now covering this, right? The things on your periphery are harder to see, right? Unless you turn your head, right? And so typically you have to turn your head to the areas of most need, which are typically students of behavior, students in crisis. And the students over here, right? College-bound students, students on track, don't get the attention all the time that they probably should, right? With extracurricular activities. So it's been a huge impact. And I think to the gentleman's statement earlier, I would say that if the decrease last year wasn't as, I would say an outlier, because historically it was an outlier. If the decrease wasn't as significant last year, the increase would not have had to have been as big this year. And so we're just trying to be stable. We're just trying to have a year of stability. And I understand the impact to the community. When I say community, I'm not just talking about parents we serve and students we serve. But we've lost, we've lost a lot, right? And I've only been here since July, but I know, I see, we've lost curriculum specialists, curriculum coordinators. We lost interventionists that provide targeted support to students of highest need. We've lost curriculum coordinators that help put robust, enhanced curriculum in place to provide services for our students. We've lost IT technicians that are then able to quickly update our IT needs, so that process is slower. And now there's a frustration in the classroom level. I mean, it's a constant ripple effect in every area. But I think when push comes to shove and the budget's approved, we all kind of look at each other and we say, we're going to make do with what we got. That's our job now. So sorry to be philosophical about that, but that's really just the reality of just the space that we're in over the years.
I would like to implore you to not back up from your budget.
Laura Library at 28 Prospect Street. Before I ask Scott a question, Steve, this is for question, it's not public comment, right? There is going to be another public
There'll
comment.
be another public
Second.
comment, but you can just make a comment about a budget also.
Okay, well, I'm gonna ask questions first. As far as the reduction of students in the 9th grade this year, have you seen any of those students coming back into the district?
I had to look specifically with our data person, specifically with 9th grade. So typically what happens is students that leave, we see them come back by 12th grade.
Okay, so
Right.
over the 4
Over the
years.
time, if you get 30, typically we will see students come back. The grass isn't always greener. And when students start to realize, hey, wait, I'm missing my friends, or I'm missing out on something, or hey, Wyndham Tech doesn't have something in terms of sports and I can get that here. We do see that trickle back over the time. And I believe our 9th grade going in for next year, what we're projecting right now is higher than that 65 number that it was this year.
Another question, has there been conversation between you and Mr. Morrison about shared services between the town and the school? I've heard about between towns, but has there been any discussion about IT or copiers? Do you guys get together and get in on those?
Yeah, so
Contracts,
you
has
can jump
there
in
been
too as well. We had a conversation at the beginning of the year with John, our DPW, and Rob Butler, Director of Facilities, to look at some cost sharing in terms of hey, if we go in and buy salt, let's buy that together. We share salt. We're trying to do things where the maintenance crew at the town does a lot of great work maintaining our fields, right? The town made an investment. We want to support that investment of, sorry, the future's here, but we bought a little robot, I forgot what it's called. Turf tank, thank you. But there's a little robot that actually lines our fields, right? And so if we can contribute the paint for that, it can save and take a person and multiple people from the town, you know, off of lining our fields, there's a lot of fields, and put them in other places to increase the services to the town. We started some initial conversation with the first selectman about IT services and what are the IT needs. It's important to note that it's not, some of our IT needs are very different than what the towns are. And so we've started that conversation to look at opportunity to have those shared services. But it's also important to know for the tax base that things like LAP insurance, like that is a joint effort by the town to try to get the best cost for us as a town. Pension contribution is shared, audit services are shared. So there's other things that are shared services and shared costs between, I would say, like the one Stafford entity. And I'm trying not to talk about us as two separate things. Like we're one town, right?
Yeah.
You know, the town has a service and we provide a service, but the service is to everybody. So we've started those conversations to try to identify where there's some opportunities.
Great. I have one more question. I'm sorry. So looking at the grants, I just wanted to clarify that early start grant, that is now going to be a competitive grant.
Correct.
Which means we used to get that money no matter what. Now that's going to be a grant that we are going to have to apply for, and hopefully we'll get it, but it's not guaranteed, correct?
Yeah, there's been some changing to early start legislation around funding. They're making that more competitive process to open it up, to try to increase pre-K slots. We want to try to stay as competitive as possible in that arena. I think that would be a significant detriment to the town of Stafford if we lost pre-K seats.
Yes. And then as far as the title grants, that those all have the Title 1, 2, 3, 4, they all have very specific things that you have to spend that money on, correct? It's not just to throw into the budget, it's specific.
Yeah, so we can't say, oh, we have $50,000 over here in IDA and we're short in utility cost over here, like the state won't approve that. So the way the grant process works from our perspective is we write a grant. One of the people that wears many hats is our assistant superintendent and our director of pupil services write some of our key grants with our finance person that oversees the fiscal cost of those. We write those grants. It has to get approved by the state. The state approves that. Some grants are pickier than others, that approval process. But then we don't get the money up front. So when we then spend the money, we submit that to reimbursement to the state, and then they release that money through the internal process that the state has to town.
Thank you. Your presentation was excellent.
I'm loud enough. Hi, Laura Allen, Meadowbrook Road, Meadowbrook Drive. How do you expect us to stay competitive with some top towns in the area as we are right now if we don't increase funding to the schools more? If we don't make up for last year's big loss, how are we going to stay competitive?
You know, in the budget, we're not asking to try to make it up in one shot. Like that would be, that wouldn't work. We're looking for a sliver of stability, right? So, because every year that there's a reduction, right? Every year that we lose a chunk of curriculum coordinators or we lose band, right? Every year that happens, there's a ripple effect through the entire district, right? We're small, right? And I think we're trying to lean into us being small and embracing that. But once that happens, there's a ripple effect. Like multiple places have to make an adjustment, right? So when we lose curriculum coordinators, right, people's roles shift and we have to start making adjustments to what we're doing. So I think the way where we can start to get some footing underneath us and start to kind of put some things in place, like career pathways at the high school, increasing opportunities for our 8th graders to take high school credit. So they're like ahead of the game going into high school. And by them being ahead of the game in 8th grade, then they're able to take more AP courses or explore more career pathways or take internships. Having a year of stability to be able to start to do those things allows us to get ahead. But I'll also say, just to note, I think we're also ahead in a lot of ways, right? Like the work that our greatest resources is our staff, right? It's our largest FTE count. But Stafford has an extremely committed workforce when it comes to our public schools and the town too. I don't want to dismiss that. But in terms of like, hey, we're going to think outside the box. We're going to think of a different way to do this. And the way that we've talked about it is we control that. Like when the dust settles, we have to take leadership and have to take control over like how we do our work now. We just now have to do it maybe different, right? So we're not going to give up on that and pursue that. But I think to your point, I think we are competitive. I think there's an opportunity for us to get ahead in some ways. But every year where we have to sustain a significant reduction, I think there's an ability to sustain some level of reduction, which we've already reduced 650. Being so small, it's hard to just absorb that. The adjustment happens across all 4 of our buildings of how we do our work.
What DIRG are we? Is
G.
it F or G? Oh,
F, sorry.
F, okay, sorry. I'm just gonna throw out a comment. I applaud you guys for being top or near it of your DIRG for so long. And the fact that you do it on a very small budget is amazing. You had 100% passing history AP. Summers did not. And they're spending more and more, and please, please, please don't back down on the budget. Please do everything we can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Henry Brook, 2 River Road, Stafford Springs. So the budget that the school has each year that keeps going up, like this gentleman said, it affects the seniors. Right now, we're in their home. This is the senior center, community center. And we're gonna keep going up on the budget for selectmen, Board of Education, to where people are not gonna be able to pay their mortgages, and not be able to sell them, their houses. And where are you gonna get the money from if nobody's here? Stafford has a smaller number of kids. And special ed is not the greatest in this town. I know that you might have grown from when I was a kid here, but the fact that they're still sending kids out for special ed services is sad. Because somebody like Manchester has how many, but you wanna be tax comparable to other towns. But Manchester has MRA, and they have Manchester, the alternative Bennett in the high school for them. You guys can only get so much from the people in town before they're gonna keep voting you guys down. And that's everybody, because not everybody's rich. Not everybody has a lot of money. I mean, we use the kids as an scapegoat, and that's not fair. Maybe the superintendent, the assistant superintendent need to reevaluate their pay. Because teachers don't make nearly as much as you guys, and the principals either, because my stepmother started off as a teacher, a principal, assistant superintendent, and superintendent of Milford Public Schools. She worked her way up. She bounced around like we see in Stafford with superintendents. They're always here. They're always looking for another job because everybody wants more money. But where do we put the kids first? The teachers are the number 1 best people that the schools have in any school district, because the teachers do it for pennies compared to what you're paying. So if we're gonna use the kids as an scapegoat, it's not fair, because the kids should be first and the teachers should be second. Because you're not dealing with a kid, an escalated problem every day. The principals are, or assistant principal before you, or Mr. Middleton, Officer Middleton. So I think that you guys keep asking for more money, and you came here after our superintendent went to Enfield. He might not have been perfect, but every salary goes up when somebody leaves. Like they're saving money on a intern, finance director. But Yana was great. Despite what people think of her, they considered her a bulldog. Yana was great, and Yana was good for the town of Stafford. And I don't care what anyone else says, because I have the right to say my own opinion. So, thank you, and we'll see what our referendums bring, how many we're gonna go into this year.
I know there's a question there. I just want to quickly comment on that. 'Cause I want to. I'll make amends to my board later if I need to. I'll apologize that. I just want to own something, right? Because I know this is going to be talked about online, right? I, as the superintendent, am the highest paid employee in the town of Stafford. I'll own it. I also make $30,000 less than the summer superintendent. Right? And I chose to come here. You're right. Because this is a great place. So I didn't choose to come here because of the salary. I choose to came here because of the opportunity that exists in a place like this. Right? To do good, hard work for hardworking people. Right? That's why I came. So I just want to own that. Like, I know that that's going to be talked about. I'm not going to shy away from that. Right? And that point. Because it's the reality. So why would I hide that? My salary is public. My contract's public. So everyone wants it, just shoot me an email and I'll send it to you. But I agree with that. And I would just want a slight correction. And I appreciate what you said. I also don't look at our students as scapegoats. That's the population we serve, right? That's our customer base. So I have to talk about students and what we do, because that's what we do, right? It would be like our DPW not talking about salt and snowplows, right? That's what they do for several months of the year, so.
Don Martinson, Center Street. Can you go back 3 slides, I believe, where you had the 31, the 9, and the 22? Yeah.
Do you want the lights off then?
No, that's fine. I can read it. Your budget's around 17, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
16.
The 31 or the third, let's round it up, 32. That is what you're requesting, right?
I'm requesting.
No. What you're gonna present to the school board?
Yep.
You have to have 31 because you have this grant money that you have to shell out, right? To get some of it back out of your initial budget. If you're asking for 22, that's not 2/3, that's not double his budget. If his is 17, that's 34. So that's 32. You're almost double on that one. Okay, so you're asking for 32, correct? You have to have 32 because you have to spend 10 mil to drop that down to 22 if you get that grant back, correct?
No, we're guaranteed to get that grant. That's revenue.
All right. So
it's I know it's called a grant, but it's ECS funds,
Okay.
it's revenue.
okay, now you're asking for 31 out of the taxpayer initiative, right?
No.
So your budget is strictly this on the 22?
This is so let me, I want to clarify. All right,
Sure.
this is an important point, right? The Board of Ed adopted this number,
Correct.
right?
32.
The town gets this number from the state, right? Guaranteed,
Okay.
right? It's not gonna be less than that right now. It
Okay.
might be more, but it's not gonna be less this fiscal year, right? So what the town has to collect from the taxpayers for just the Board of Ed is this amount,
2 million.
From the Board of Ed.
for the Board of Ed.
Right now, your budget's 32. You're saying we're gonna get, the town's gonna get 10 grand.
Yeah, I believe on the mill sheet that was passed around, you have the selectmen's budget, the Board of Ed's budget, and then there's revenue.
Right.
So then the mill rate should be generated off of what the number is after the revenue is connected.
Right.
Yep,
But, all right, so you're saying that's guaranteed
correct.
in the grant. Okay, so.
Yep.
All right, so your budget isn't basically 42 or 41 out of the.
No,
Okay.
no.
Cause I got confused.
I appreciate that clarity, because
Since you're asking for the your budget is 31, and I was wondering, because you have to shell out money for grants that you were saying to get some of it back, and it's competitive, and you might not get it. So I was figuring that's what some of.
I appreciate that. Two separate things.
Yeah.
Two very separate things.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
My name's Ed Hanson. I live on Handle Road.
I am.
I have a question about pre-K.
Sure.
What's the age group that made up?
Oh, so we have 3-year-olds that come in pre-K. So a school district is responsible for students starting as early as 3-year-old up till 22. And so we have 3-year-olds with us, so it's 3 and 4-year-olds. So students might be in our pre-K program for 2 years, and then they'll move up to kindergarten after that.
Is that mandated by the state of Connecticut? Pre-K?
No. What's mandated by the state of Connecticut is that we are obligated to start to provide services for students that come to us from birth to 3 that have an IEP in place. We're obligated to provide services for those students. I would say pre-K is mandated in a town like Stafford. We're not Glastonbury. Glastonbury doesn't have pre-K. They have a very small pre-K program for the town of Glastonbury that provides services for students with special ed, or itinerant services, meaning there might be a kid not in the district but needs speech services, because the town of Glastonbury is a different economic makeup than Stafford. In Stafford, we have working families, working parents that really rely on that pre-K program at minimum cost to the parents so that they can have a job, they can go and work.
And how many students are there in pre-K, do you know?
195.
95.
95, 195, 195 pre-K. Thank you, Anna.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, please. There's one more question, still Laura Lever, from Cross Country. But can you just talk about the program, the special education program, and how we are trying to bring students back into district from the ones that are outplaced?
Yeah, so we currently have a partnership with Effective School Solutions, which is a entity that is it's at our middle school. We have that there because we had students that were coming up from elementary school, and we had the majority of our students in that 5th or 7th grade that were outplaced, that we're paying a tuition cost for. So we're using that program to try to keep kids in district and slowly trying to transition students back to the district as well. Henry's not wrong about the tuition cost. Like it's a significant thing.
It is.
The one thing that I would say that we're trying to do, that I'll be open with the tax base here is if I came to the Board of Finance members that are here, right, and said, hey, if I got an additional $100,000 right now, I could save the town $200,000. And what I mean by that is $100,000 would allow me to hire a teacher and a paraeducator. And I could bring back 2 students that are outplaced in theory. I don't want to put too much pressure on a director of pupil service. She's staring at me right now. But in theory, I could bring back 2 students that are outplaced to just work with that teacher and paraeducator. Typically, students that are outplaced cost the district around $90,000. So that's what I mean by, like, if I had just a pot of $100,000 right now, I could bring 2 students back, and those students are costing us over $200,000, right? But we're not in a place to do that, right? We're working towards that. So we do have a program right now at our middle school where we're starting to bring kids back to the district, try to keep kids in the district to mitigate that cost, so it's not a constant increasing cost as.
Provided it's appropriate.
Yes.
The city.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just want to follow up real quick about our highest paid employee we have here, Mr. Sugarman. I'm a teacher. That is my job. I am a teacher. I'm in the field with the kids. You're right. We are the frontline people there. I totally agree with that statement. But you couldn't pay me enough to do what the superintendent does. I am so sorry. He has to know what my job is. He has to know what everyone's job in the district is, what the paras do, what food service. So he needs to know the educational side of it. And then he also needs to be a businessman. I couldn't do that. I can't run a business. That's not my specialty. My husband handles our finances. I'm like that, but he has to know both sides of it. We need to be competitive with the rest of the state. We're not going to get someone who is qualified and amazing to come to Stafford. We know how amazing Stafford is. Like, I grew up here, I graduated here, my kids are here. Stafford is amazing, but we are not gonna get highly qualified people to come to Stafford unless we pay them to come here. That's just realistic. People aren't going to be like, oh, Summers is offering a higher paycheck. I'm gonna go there. That's more money. It's less school buildings. We have more school buildings here than Summers. So that's a reality. Being on the board the last 5 years, one of our other high paid positions, our director of finance, we have had 5 different people in that position. 5. That's a lot of turnover. That's a lot of change. That's a lot of retraining that affects the flow of our district. So we need to pay people to stay in our district, to have some longevity. So that is a really important feature. I get it, like Stafford doesn't have the resources like Summers has, like Manchester has, but we have to be somewhat competitive to keep people here and at least apply. We opened up our superintendent search over a year ago and found no one qualified to come here. We had an interim all last year and reopened it again. And we were lucky that Mr. Sugarman, we found him. He's been amazing for our district. So just to answer that, I would never want his job ever as a teacher. No, thank you. It's a special skill set that he has, and I am grateful for it. So, to that matter, we need to pay people what they are worth.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry too, and I debated whether I was gonna try to be brief. My name is Donna Napolitano. I live at 76 Wales Road. I am a teacher at the middle school. I am a property owner in town. I do hate to pay taxes. I am worried about our monthly budget. I do not get an increase of 4% for my salary each year. Yet I need to trust what we have going on. All of us in our homes are finding ways to balance. Can we do without this? Can we do without that? Do we not go out to dinner? I believe that what they're presenting to us, because I see it in school, I see what we need to do. I see what the results of the cuts have done to me as a teacher. I won't say blood, sweat and tears, but I will say sweat and tears on a daily basis. It's extremely challenging and for many, many reasons. The budget cuts are one of them. What I think that we need to remember, and I feel for everybody who needs to pay more, is that we need to. I remember once when I was a kid, my father said to my mother, he was a trooper and she raised 5 kids on his salary. Why don't we have extra peanut butter downstairs in the pantry? For the first time ever, she threw something across the room. She didn't have money to put peanut butter in the pantry because she didn't. What I'm getting at is that if we are constantly cutting or having a 0 increase, which is indeed cutting, then we are not fixing the problem at all. There's definite change that has been done in town with the new board people that are coming, with people looking to how do we increase our tax base. But if we're cutting the quality of what we have in our town, then we're not going to get people in to fix the tax base problem. So there needs to be a balance. So it can't be no increase again, when this man, who I understand where he's coming from, saying, not this year. It's been never has there been willingly people wanting to give money to the Board of Ed. It never. It's as if they think that we wanna buy mink stoles for ourselves. So as a person who's a teacher and as a taxpayer of 3 pieces of property, I pay $20,000 a year in taxes. I am willing to say we need to give a little here because I trust that they cut a little there, because with the hope of continuing to have people come into this town and build in this town and continue to grow their families in this town. I have one last statement to say that I don't understand why people are comparing the Board of Ed's budget with the town selectmen's budget. All of those things combined make the town of Stafford's budget, but you cannot compare the money or dollars in each of them because they're not servicing, they're completely different budgets. It's like at home, you have your electric budget and your car payment. It's 2 different things. So I wish people would open their eyes to that, not look at these dollars compared to the selectmen's dollars. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so
Can I just make one rebuttal
as long
statement?
as it's a quick rebuttal.
Since
Thank you.
people have been attacking my position,
I don't think anybody's attacking you. If you'd like to make another comment,
I would
we are-
like to make a very big comment.
we are gonna have another comment period shortly.
Well, it'll only take me 2 seconds if you
But
like. Number one, we don't live in a micro world, we live in a macro world. In a macro world, there's the school budget, the town budget, and everybody else's expenses that they have to make for the year. That's where reality is, that's where the people have to look at. You can't just focus on the school budget and say they're being deprived. It's not the whole thing. You've got to look at the whole package, not part of that.
Okay, so that'll close the question period that we have for the three presenters. Take about a 5-minute break. We're gonna set up for our Board of Finance meeting. You all received a sheet, and on that sheet is a breakdown of the numbers you were given tonight. If you don't have one,
I do.
we'll get them to you. And what it shows the budgets, it shows you, does it show year over year? The budgets, it's how much we have to raise for taxes, including the mill rate. Take a look at those things before we come back. When we do, we'll have another comment period before we start our Board of Finance meeting. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Right, well, you're sure. Right.
What's that dark thing?
So if you like it,
Wow, it's just long enough, I think. Just long enough?
Hey, Kelly. Kelly. Thank you, buddy. Other fans.
Good.
Okay, everybody, thank the meeting. Please take your seats, please. Thank you. Before we start our Board of Finance meeting, I'd like to give anybody here the opportunity to make a public comment. Again, state your name and address, and please limit to 3 minutes. We can all get home at a decent time tonight. And this is more for you to be able to address the Board of Finance with how you feel about the budget, what you think we should do. Just so we heard a lot of things already, but just want to give you one more opportunity.
Dave Collado, McGurran Drive. So everything that was presented looks good. And I think if the average person was sitting in here They say, yeah, it looks like you're doing your best. So one person commented on Mr. Sugarman's pay. It's like commented on a CEO's pay. There's not many people that can do the job. So of course they're gonna get paid and they deserve to get paid a little extra money. At the end of the day, though, I mean, the budget has 0% chance of passing. I think everybody here knows that. I'm not saying we should or shouldn't vote for the budget. Yes or no, it's just not gonna pass. And I think everybody deep down knows that's gonna happen. Normally, people will take about a $3, $4, $100 increase. There's some people that'll say it should never go up. Give me a break. It's gotta go up. Of course, it's gotta go up occasionally. I've been figuring out taxes for a lot of people, and it's a lot of them been anywhere between 1,000, 1,200, 1,300. No one's gonna vote for that. It's just not gonna happen. So I think if we can get the mill rate down to about 25, I think that's possibly passable. Again, I'm not saying it should be 25 or it should be 26 or 27. It's not gonna pass where it is. It's just never gonna happen. Everyone knows that. So I think you guys have to do your best you can to get it to 25. I've been hearing people saying it should go to 19, 22, 23. We're not gonna go backwards. And we're not gonna stay even. We have to go up. Everything's going up, but it's gonna go up a stomachable amount. So I think people will I predict that I think every pass and no, yes or no vote in 20 years, I can just about see, I feel from talking to people, and I've been talking to so many people that are like, Democrats, Republicans, and they're like, no way I'm gonna vote for this, just because it's gone up so much. So again, it's not whether I'm up here saying it should pass or shouldn't pass. People will take a $300, $400, $500 increase. A lot of people are at 1,000, 1,200. You got to get it down to about, I think, about 25. Or we can go on here and we could talk for 12 years. It's just never going to pass. So I just think you got to get it to there, and I think that we could just pass it through. And that's all I got to say. But I appreciate everyone that everyone's done. Because I think you guys have worked really hard, and I wish we could pass every budget, but people just aren't going to pass them. So thank you.
I'd say 22.
Exactly.
Oh, it's average. 7.58%.
Eric Dimick, Munson Road. I see we have 500,000 in costs in savings that we had last year. We have the 400,000 in bond payments we no longer have, and we have 138,000 from the town of Wyndham that we get. Now, that you should be able to work that budget within those numbers of that savings. So that money that we have in the cost of the bond savings and the town of Wyndham, that's $500,000. I worked for municipalities for 32 years of my life. We took no pay raises and we took furlough days because they didn't want to raise the budgets. I never see that happen here at Stafford. Times are tougher now than they were when I had to take those furlough days and no raises. It's about time Stafford does the same thing. The people can't afford to just keep raising their taxes year after year. Luckily, last year we didn't raise our taxes, but every year prior to that, they go up. When is the end of taxes going up? I'm not getting a $800 raise a year in my pay to pay for my taxes. My taxes going up $864. Board of Finance, when I did budgets for the town of Willington, they just didn't give me money. If I didn't use that money, my budget went down by that much. Do you actually look at last year's budget and how much money that each department didn't spend? We have a lot of transfers of money going from department to department. So say, Public Works, do you go through their budget and see what wasn't spent last year? That's what needs to be done on budgets. Not just keep handing out the money to departments. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Can we refund? When do we pay?
And we don't even have revenues. We don't even have the numbers for the revenues yet. So you're gonna make a mill rate at numbers we don't have. They could be higher. So if those numbers are higher, our mill rate's gonna come down. I see no projected revenue for ambulance association. In budget of 2024, they had 707,000, they have nothing. And then on the state police. Find that, state police grants, we have 20,449 in 25. This year you have nothing, it's blank. So are we not getting those grants? And does the ambulance association have no projected money coming in?
Is that it?
That's it.
Thank you. Anyone else? I'd like to call the meeting to order. We have a full quorum as well as 2 alternates. And next, what we'll do is we'll discuss and give possible action on the proposed budgets that are put before us. Anyone like to start?
Is this on? Can you hear me? Is it, the thing is on? Okay. I'm an officer holding 3 positions in the second largest retiree union in the United States. We have about 12,500 members. And my job is to do research for the group on many of the problems we've talked about today. There's a lot of misconceptions here, honest sentiment and a desire to reach a consensus, tremendous. But there's a lot of really serious misconceptions that people should, I think, stop to think about. First of all, the real problem with education funding in Connecticut is the state. Most of us don't know this, but they haven't increased the ECS, the education cost sharing formula, since 2007. You know how many bouts of inflation we've had since then? You know how many more mandates have been passed with no money for what services you have to provide to children, what the schools have to do, and so forth. The real problem begins with them. And I saw a news conference this year held by 5 of the mayors of the biggest cities in Connecticut. I've never seen such hostility and such anxiety. They were saying that their cities are being destroyed by the fact that the state is one of the lowest in this area in terms of providing resources for the schools. And that in some places, you see it every day in Hartford and New Haven. They're talking about it's actually schools closing, not being able to process the students and so forth. That's the first problem. Second problem is we have to keep in mind, I agree entirely with the strain that people are facing. I'm on fixed income. I'm 83 years old. Okay. And fortunately, I had a job where my retirement is probably adequate. And, you know, I'm not feeling the strain that some people are. But every day when you go to buy something to fix your house, buy a gallon of gas, go to the gas station, everybody feels this. So do the parts of the government that we're dealing with here. Everything the school has to buy, every supply, every kind of service, everything is going up, everything. And so when you take a year like last year and you provide no increase at all, that's not standing still. That's probably going back somewhere between 4 and 6%. And the reason is because the cost of inflation is going up. Everybody in the state who belongs to a union will get an automatic increase. It's going to be 2.5%. Nobody can ever beat it. You can't go to court with the state laws the way it is. The best final presentation wins. You're never going to get below that. There's nothing we can do about it. The problem with that is if you allow a town to stand still, but really go backwards, and then the same thing the next year, you don't allow them any ability to try to make up what was lost in the past. You know what you're going to have in the end? You're going to have nothing. You're going to have, who's going to want to come to this town to build a house for $600,000 that has one of a school that's not even adequately funded, roads falling apart, buildings not properly maintained? They're not going to do it. They're not going to do it. I take seriously all of the complaints or the comments about the expenses and, you know, how excessive they are, how difficult it is to live today. It is the worst I've ever seen, and everybody feels it. I'm the power of attorney for a 102-year-old woman who was all her life a successful professional. She went broke, and now she's under Social Security, Medicaid, actually, Title 19, in a nursing home. I see what the problems are, but you cannot give up on the youth of today, and you can't expect to have a better tomorrow if you don't invest something in the town now. You're not gonna get the people you want, you're not gonna get the businesses you want, you're not gonna get any growth at all if we're the worst. It's a race to the bottom to provide inadequate resources year after year. Just a final thing here. Stafford used to be, I've been here since 1965, okay? And I'll die here. My wife and I, we lived in Staffordville and we lived in the borough and so forth. But there was always in Stafford, I sensed in the old days, a kind of desire to always do the best you could for the town. Everybody was proud of the football teams if they did well, or basketball, or the band, and they used to have the Crusaders and everything. Everybody liked those things, and everybody took pride in the athletic fields for the kids and the rest of it. Somewhere along the way, I feel that we're carrying a mentality or a culture of the national politics in this country into a town that didn't have it before. We used to be able to compromise and people understood things. Last year's budget can only be this, and the defeat of what, 4 or 5 referenda proposals, it can only be described as a disaster. If you keep doing that, it's only gonna take a few more years before we're gonna be buried. A classic example of that is the roads. When I first moved here, the selectmen and so forth, I rented a house from the selectman, first selectman, that's why I knew. He used to brag about the roads. We have all these miles of roads and they're so good in Stafford. Look at what happened from years and years of not maintaining those things properly. Instead of having to pay a small amount of money to resurface, now you've got to go back in and put in whole new roads, beds and everything else. There has to be significant work done. It's 3 times more expensive. What I'm saying is, please, the budgets that were presented here tonight were serious budgets. The comments were made were serious. You got to balance it out. We cannot go year to year standing still or cutting. All that means is you're moving backwards and it becomes impossible to ever catch up.
So I'd like to point out a few facts from the presentation tonight, as well as some of the information you have, like the sheet there. Understanding that people brought up where you have less debt service, you might have more revenue, but those things don't actually mesh into the overall budget. And I'm gonna give a good example, like somebody mentioned that a lot of people's taxes are going up $800 or $1,200. And I know that's true in some cases. There are also people whose taxes are going down or staying the same. So you really need to investigate and look at what your total tax outlay to the town is. And what I mean by that is the calculator's on the website. If you're not able to use it, there's people in town hall that will help you. But at the same time, you're gonna get a reduction in your car taxes. Last year, the mill rate was capped at 32.46. That's all we could charge on car tax. So right away, there's gonna be about a 20% reduction in your tax. On top of the 5 or 10% reduction in the value of your car. So some people I know have already checked and said, hey, my taxes are going up $700, but I save $400 on my car taxes. So my overall is $300. Some people, when they combine them all, they're paying less next year based upon the current budget and the current mill rate than they would have otherwise. And when I start talking about the car taxes, there's one thing really to remember. Because we were over the 32.46% last year, we would get something called a motor vehicle cap reimbursement from the state. The last 2 years, that was almost 700,000. Because we're now under that, our reimbursement is 0. So that right off the bat is $700,000 in revenue that we lost in taxes. So houses have gone up more, cars have gone down. We're losing revenue in one spot and it's going up in another. Now, nobody likes to have higher taxes, but it's kind of the reality of it. You can talk about, things going up a certain amount this year. I think the overall budget, I have the numbers in front of me, is like 3.18% difference in the amount of money we need to raise from taxes. Okay? Last year, we brought that down to 0. So over a 2-year period, we're asking the taxpayers to fund about a 1.5% increase. per year. And it's not even sustainable at that. In other words, if we're gonna go back to a zero again this year, we're gonna be set way behind. Because someday it catches up. And does next year gonna be a 10% increase just to maintain what we have? You have to look at it in a realistic fashion. Again, nobody likes to pay it, but we all have budgets at home. We all have things we have to work on. We know that our costs go up at home, but we find a way to pay it. We don't have a way to go to them and say, hey, we don't want to pay it. You're asking for too much. You should get rid of employees when you go in the store. This is just a part of being a citizen in the town. All right? There's no towns around here the taxes are going down. Even with revaluation. And revaluation, some people are hit harder than others. But the opportunity, if you felt as though you were being unfairly assessed, went by or is still in motion, where you could go to the assessor and say, I want to appeal my assessment because I think it's too high. All right? And they use hard data to get those numbers. And in the end, we're lowering the mill rate. The numbers are very transparent. The budgets were very clear about what the additional spending is coming from and where additional cuts have been made. I look at both budgets or all budgets. I don't think anybody has increased employees. Matter of fact, employees have gone down in the town and in the school board. So nobody's adding employees or just saying, hey, we got this extra money. And somebody made a comment about extra money. If we get the extra money, where does it go? Well, the good news is, all right, extra money in the town budget just goes right into the general fund. It's finally brought our general fund to a manageable level where we're not any longer on a watch list for the state. Okay? Because First Selectman Morrison and the Board of Selectmen don't take extra money. At the end of the year, if they know they're gonna have extra money, they don't go and look for a way to spend it. They look for a way to say, fine, save it, put it in the general fund, and then they adjust budgets from there. So contrary to what somebody said, we don't automatically just give them a raise. If a budget's performing, we have extra money, that budget is being reduced. And I'm sure that Selectman Morrison could give those examples. So the town has been being a good steward of your money. You might not agree with everything. You might not agree with certain salaries that are being paid, but those are contractual. Those are people that we've hired, including the school, the same thing. People are doing a good job with these budgets. I haven't met anybody in the budget process this year that is looking at it any other way. Except for what can we do for the best for the town and how low can we get this mill rate and still just maintain the services we have, not grow the services, just maintain them. And I'd just like to point that out because the numbers are really, really clear, right? You can take a few and look at them. You know, if you have questions about revenue for the ambulance, well, the revenue for the ambulance is clear in the budget. Matter of fact, Mr. Morrison pointed out a slide. We pay money to have the ambulance in town. We pay this amount and they get this much in revenue. That's the cost associated with the in-between. So I think the numbers are clear. And I think it's really important that people take a look at that. Because truthfully, if this budget keeps getting defeated again this year, we are gonna go backwards. Something's gonna have to go or give. There's gonna be something that the town needs. You know, I don't know what that is, because the Board of Finance is not our job to tell the school or the selectmen what they have to cut. If we have to give cuts, we just give them a number, then they decide where it's coming. And those are the meetings that they happen that you should really go to, because that's when you're gonna find out what you're gonna lose. So what we have in front of us is we have the total amount of taxes to be raised to 34,252, 381. And it results in a 26.44 mill rate. And just to let you know, last year, the amount we had to raise was 34,306, 649. It was actually a higher number that we raised last year in taxes. So we're raising less money in taxes than we did last year. Because there's a loss of revenue. And that makes a difference. Anybody else on the board? Do we have any ideas what we'd like to do with this budget or any discussion?
I believe the school board they worked with zero budget start, which I thought was the way to do this year. and to build the needs that they have, not like they said before, well, you had a billion in this bucket, we'll just make it 1,050,000. That bucket may have dropped to 900,000 because they're building it from scratch, what the students actually need. When you have increases of contractual services like salary and insurance, when that takes up 1,345,000, I think it was, of your budget, there's really no choice we have to do but fund that. And I heard what you said about taking furloughs. I just don't think that's practical in the schools where we really probably don't have enough teachers right now to service what we need. So I know, I mean, you said it's got a snowball's chance of not of passing, you know? I just don't see us how we can go backwards. 4%. I mean, overall, it's a 3.1% increase, I believe. It's not insurmountable. But again, that's only my opinion. You will have the final say on what happens. But I'm leaning toward saying that both the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Education did a good job putting together the budget for this year. And as Steve said earlier, it's probably been more conversations about the budgets than we've had in the past. There's been more transparency. I think they've done a good job, and I think we elected these people to do this job. So we really need to let them do it. I mean, you can't bring politics into it, and I think that's what happens a lot of times. But you elected them, you live with it, we move on.
And like one of the things I said, just to reiterate the point, we're asking the taxpayer to contribute less overall money this year than we did last year. So that might be hard to wrap your mind around. Revaluation is always a tough year. But the reality of this, we're asking for less from the taxpayers this year than we did last year. And that was based upon the adopted budget after the cuts were made. So understanding that and understanding that, hey, my taxes are gonna go up with the mill rate increase, or you know, like I said, some people aren't going up, some people are staying the same. Some people are less when they factor in how much you're saving on the fund. And if you've got a big increase, sorry, I mean, but like I said, that was just based upon your assessment. And assessments are done every 5 years to level the playing field, to make sure everybody, based upon what they own, in the best possible way, is paying their fair share of taxes.
I'd like to support, what Tony said. I believe that the two budgets that were presented to us are realistic, certainly not excessive, and that in view of what happened to the budget last year, unless we want to avoid major moves backwards that we're never going to be able to recover from, this budget makes sense. I would endorse the budgets as they've been presented.
I have to say, excuse me, the way that the Board of Education budget was presented this year, it really it made me look at it differently. I've been an alternate, and this is my first year as being elected, and it really made me look at things different, meaning what the town is actually from taxes paying towards that budget. I understand evaluations are hitting some people hard, and yet there isn't. I turned around and I went to that calculator and I went through my taxes, my son's taxes, my father's taxes, my mother-in-law's taxes, my other son's taxes. And it was totally different across the board. And it didn't, I expected to see when I calculated everything for everybody, it worked out the same. So I hear everybody across the board. I do support, I think that both budgets were presented fiscally responsible. And that is how I'm leaning.
Any further discussion? I think based upon what I'm hearing from the board is the general feeling that there is not really a feeling that we should be cutting budgets at this time. So, I mean, we could sit on this, and we could have another meeting, but I don't see a difference in what's gonna change the information that we have in front of us. But like I said, I think it's very clear what we have in front of us right now. I don't think there's any question about what the numbers are.
I don't think, I don't see anything today that we don't do won't be more expensive tomorrow. This year, gonna be more expensive next year. I'd like to see this budget go through as presented.
See, is there gonna be another hearing on this before we vote again after this vote?
No, so when we vote on it, if we push this to referendum now. We don't talk, we can talk about it, but we won't have a further meeting until it gets to referendum, then we need actually referendum.
But if it doesn't pass at our next meeting, is there another
That's
opportunity for the town to speak again?
We can hold another budget hearing, but for the whatever cuts that have to be made, because I'm assuming if a referendum doesn't pass, then obviously we'll look at making cuts, or maybe we won't. That's up to the board to decide. So will there be another meeting? Maybe, but also after that referendum, we hold the Board of Finance meeting, so people can still come and make comment on it. So that's like, you know what I mean, that's like saying, this is what we want you to do. But if we push this to referendum, there won't be a second budget hearing.
Steve, can I make one suggestion?
Sure.
If we, Mr. Gallardo thought 25 mil would be a more agreeable mill rate? If I understood him correctly,
I believe that's what he said.
would we see how much of a difference that would make?
I can tell you, just doing the math at the top of my head, that would be presenting a budget lower than both the budgets last year.
You have to make a reduction of $1,852,820.
Yep, and right now we have a total of what, 1.4 million?
A mill is $1,295,000.
No, but the total increase this year run over last year's budget.
$1,505,542.
So that 25 mil would be below what we funded last year, which was below what we funded the year before. So I don't see how that is even workable for the town.
I'd like to make a motion to push the budgets forward as presented.
You're talking both budgets, correct?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Nathan.
You need a second.
We need a second, or yeah.
Anybody else want a second? I'll second the motion.
Is there any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
the point of clarification, that last year there was some confusion about even the referendum. Since all the budgets were all bunched together, are they gonna be separate this year, or just one?
They're always one.
Okay, thanks.
So we have a first and a second. Is there any further discussion?
I just think that maybe, you know, people get time to process what was said at this meeting. And then come back with maybe additional comments, not that the budget should go down or change. It's just, you know, time to process what was talked about.
I think everybody's done a really good job, the town, the Board of Education, as well as what we talked about here. Really kind of paint the numbers, and I think sometimes the narrative is town just going way up in expense, we're just spending a lot more money, and that's not the case really at all. And like I said, what we're asking the town to pay is less. It's confusing because it's a referendum year. I'm sorry, a revaluation year, where it's like I said, some people are going up, some people are staying the same, some people are going down. Everybody's car tax are going down. Like I said, if you look at the overall package, you might be surprised. And I think it's important going forward that the information put out about the budget is accurate information. And not information that is creating confusion over what it is. But like I said, the presentations, I think, were very clear tonight. They had clear, concise numbers. And like I said, the sheet about, you know, how much we're asking them, the town to pay is really less than what we asked them to pay, raising taxes last year.
The only thing I'd like to hear from the other members of the board, I have great respect for the citizens of the town. If people want time, as was suggested, to process this and want another meeting, another chance to discuss this, come forward with different ideas, I'd support that. I would support waiting if that's the feeling of the people on the board. But I right now, I support the budgets. I think they're realistic and in the interest of democracy only, if we wanted to wait and, you know, maybe people can come up with ideas to save money or to, you know, look at the budget in a different way. I just like to hear how the other members of the board feel about that. I don't want anyone to go home thinking we shut them out or it was already a predetermined thing or anything like that. In the end, we don't have any control anyway. The voters do. We try to present the best budget that we can. We weigh the factors. We study these things for years and, you know, the budget process starts a lot earlier than the meeting tonight. But if people do want more time to discuss this, I would be more than willing to, you know, vote for that.
Let me ask a hypothetical question of Selectman Morrison and Superintendent Sugarman. If for some reason the state came back and all of a sudden gave more money in grants. So, you know, a couple hundred here, 100 there. What would happen with that? Could we actually reconvene and set a lower mill rate?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to step on it, so, yeah. So, as I said, the money that we talked about in our budget is like our expenditure, like what we need to operate, right? To like have a amount of stability. If there is more money coming in from the state, so if we got a 2 or 3% increase to our ECS revenue, I'm not gonna increase our budget and find something else to spend on to make up for that money. It just lowers the ask to the taxpayer if that were to happen. And that would be for other things too as well.
What would be the anticipated date that the state would be back on that?
May
They have to adjourn on the 7th.
May 5th is when they close, like there's been a lot of discussion. This legislative session's been unique, it's supposed to be a short session. And they're covering a lot, like, in my opinion, kind of trying to do a lot. But the big thing that superintendents are kind of focused on, there's a couple bills. But that funding bill is a significant issue. There was a lot of advocacy to try to make some adjustments there.
My understanding was when they were talking about this, it wouldn't necessarily be something you're gonna get for this coming year, it'd be for the 27. budget.
No, so there's so, to your point, I'll be honest, with you, Steve, it's been so many different bills. And different variations in all of them. There is this other caveat that the legislator has talked about of tapping into that governor's fiscal guardrails and saying, hey, we need to eject 150 million into ECS funding to kind of kickstart it, to get it back to a more reasonable number to make up for lost time. And then the actual legislation would kick in next fiscal year. So you're, right, that's why it's so confusing. They're trying to pass legislation that would be for like fiscal year 27, 28. But they're trying to inject some money for fiscal year 27, which is what we're talking about, to kind of make up for lost time.
So here's a hypothetical question. It's really hypothetical. It's gonna sound crazy. But let's say we have a referendum on May 5th and the budget passes. But on May 4th, we found out that there's more ECS money, right? Can the board adopt the lower mill rate than is voted on?
I would think that you would vote and the vote for the referendum that you put out would be the referendum of no. And by the way, the only grants that I see the state moving on is the ECS. Yeah, I don't see any other town grants. In fact, we're actually down a little bit on our state grants. So, and in our budget, I'll be in meetings all next week and the week after at the Capitol on the funding. The only thing I'm hearing about is ECS.
And at the federal level, like if we had a reduction, you know, if like we have 347,000 in IDA, let's say next year we get less, we get 340. The way we typically absorb that is the salaries that make up that grant, right? The staff that are attached to that grant, that's the thing that gets funded first. So the other things that we fund out of that grant are things that we have to get rid of, right? Because we realize if we don't fund the salaries, right, that money that comes back on the general fund, which is now an increase to our operating expense. So, you know, that's the way we manage and absorb, at least for that first fiscal year, any decrease to federal funding, but within grants. But what we're talking about is that ECS revenue that comes to the town.
Thank you. So we have a first and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
I
I'm sorry.
never shown me.
1, 2, raise your hand if you're an aye. 3. 4. That's Blake. 4. Bob? No? Nope, don't have to. So Blake, Dave, Tony, and Shelley voted aye. And Rob voted no. My vote's not needed, so it passed 4-1. So we need to make some motions. You have 3 motions there.
Sure.
And actually, I think we have one more. I need a motion to adopt the library budget as presented inside the supplemental budget.
Move we adopt the library budget as presented.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
I'll make a motion to approve the fiscal year 26-27 WPCA budget of $2,404,091 to the town meeting for approval.
Second.
Second, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So voted.
Make a motion to approve the fiscal year 26-27 service district budget $568,200 to the town meeting for approval.
Second.
Shelley second, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
I make a motion to approve sending the town of Stafford fiscal year 26-27 budget of $48,797,716 for the town meeting for approval.
Second.
Second by Shelley. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. So Rod's a no on that. And one more motion? Anybody?
Adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Rob, there's a second? Second, all in favor?